Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, The Dragon-Slaying Samurai in the Pirate World. Chapter 91. What a monster's power this is. Gulu. Crescent Bay has been destroyed. Even the extremely strong surrounding wall collapsed. Oh. Dad, Tian is so great. Everyone, come on, kill all these despicable Marines. Looking at Crescent Bay, which was shaken to pieces by Whitebeard's monster power in the blink of an eye, with cracks all over the place, and even half of it collapsed, it was shocking. The Marine captains couldn't help but shrink their eyes and take a breath. His face turned a little pale and he broke into a cold sweat. But in comparison, those pirates were different. Everyone seemed to see light from the darkness. There were shouts of excitement, and joy, and morale was high. Extremely fierce, stepping on the collapsed surrounding wall. Killed one after another. What an incredible guy. He can actually do this. Marine Admiral Sakazuki stood up, jumped off the second floor of the execution platform, and arrived at the square. He looked directly at Whitebeard's majestic figure, clenched his fists wearing black gloves, and could not help but emit astonishing smoke. The extremely hot breath makes people afraid to come close. In this case, we have to take action. Aokiji looked very serious and also came to Oris Square, staring at Phoenix Marco. The body began to feel an astonishing chill, causing the surrounding temperature to continue to drop. This execution was made public to the public. In order to promote the power of Marine and deter those lawless guys on the sea who were ready to take action, it was also broadcast live to the whole world. Just now, the surveillance video started to be cut off directly. Now the whole sea is paying attention. At this point, nothing can be done to allow these pirates to rescue people. We must even try our best to eliminate the Whitebeard pirates here. Otherwise, Marine will lose one after another, and the prestige of the world government and naval headquarters will be seriously damaged. Next, I really can't imagine what kind of chaos the sea will be like. Sakazuki Admiral, Kuzan Admiral, the Marines, who were originally in low morale, couldn't help but feel refreshed upon seeing this. Seeing the Admiral of Headquarters who had been sitting there, Akainu and Aokiji finally started to move out, and they all shouted as if they finally saw the backbone. No matter what, you will never be able to shake our advantage. Days. His eyes were fixed on the figure above Crescent Bay. Although he was old, he was still tall and majestic with astonishing momentum. Marine Marshal Sengoku, whose fists were clenching and looking ugly, did not hesitate to shout an order to the phone bug. Enter the entire army to meet the enemy and destroy the pirates who boarded Crescent Bay. They must not be allowed to come to the execution platform. Quote, Cipher Pol, a Cipher Pol series under Cipher Pol, has already obtained information that Whitebeard has a serious health problem and is in extremely poor condition. He even needs to use ventilator and other equipment to barely maintain the deterioration of his condition. He didn't believe how long Whitebeard's poor body could last. Yes ***. Come on, everyone. For justice. Destroy the pirates. What a mere pirate. We also have the Admiral, who is called a monster, here. Don't worry about Whitebeard and Phoenix. Let everyone Sakazuki and Aokiji Admiral deal with them, and the others will do their best to deal with those pirates. Don't get too close to the area where Admiral and the others are fighting. The Marine captain's eyes were red, and they rushed forward without fear of death, killing the pirates who broke into Crescent Bay. I saw the two admirals of headquarters, Akainu and Aokiji, heading straight towards Whitebeard and Phoenix Marco, obviously about to take action directly. The Marine Vice Admiral who was present immediately commanded his subordinates, telling them not to worry about Whitebeard and Phoenix Marco, but only to eliminate the pirates. Such a monster attack is definitely not something ordinary Marine elites can intervene in. Even if they are the Vice Admirals of Naval Headquarters, they may not be able to help if they intervene rashly. What is that, above the Gate of Justice? Gulu. It's an island. Suddenly, a sharp-eyed Marine pointed at the Gate of Justice, which had already been opened and the sea was frozen by Aokiji. His eyes narrowed sharply, revealing a look of disbelief. He screamed uncontrollably. Could it be those guys? It's exactly this time. Look at the huge floating sky island coming from the sky. Marine Marshal Sengoku, Suru Vice Admiral, Akainu, Aokiji and others all couldn't help but their hearts jumped and their expressions changed drastically. Kai. No warning. The light blue light suddenly illuminated the entire sea. An extremely fiery huge slash floated above Sky Island at a terrifying speed, tearing apart the atmosphere and slashing across the sky. But not towards the execution platform. Instead, it hit the majestic and solemn Naval Headquarters building, which symbolizes justice. In that direction is the Naval Headquarters building. When a Marine general saw this, his face changed wildly. In front of all their Marine generals, they wanted to chop down the majestic Naval Headquarters building. What kind of contempt is this? But at this time, they had no time to stop him. It's impossible for them to stop it alone. Buzz, buzz, between the electric light and flint. The golden light shines everywhere, and the Sanskrit sounds are faintly visible. A huge Buddha rose into the sky. The golden giant palm blasted out towards the huge slash coming from the force. Boom boom. The loud noise shook the sky and the light was dazzling. Suddenly, the entire island seemed to tremble. The fierce wind rippled through the layers, making it difficult to open one's eyes. After all had hastily gathered strength to respond and was not well prepared. The dazzling golden Buddha was directly knocked back. Bang, hit the building below hard. A 3-story building collapsed under the pressure. Rocks sputtered and dust flew. Bang, a huge golden Buddha rushed out in a panic. He has fluffy hair, wears glasses, is huge, and is covered in gold. It is the Marshal of the Naval Headquarters, Sengoku. Big Buddha, that was just now. A species of phantom beast that is even rarer than Logia's ability, the Renren fruit, and the form of the great Buddha. This is Marshal Sengoku's ability. Gulu, I have been a member of Marine for so long, and this is the first time I have seen Yuanshi use Wan. Some Marines reacted and couldn't help shouting. Looking at the tall and dazzling golden Buddha that makes people unable to look directly, I was inexplicably shocked. Many people have joined Marine for many years, but this is the first time they see Sengoku, as Marine Marshal, show off his devil fruit abilities. Is it finally here? Mihawk's eyes are sharp and his fighting spirit is high. Staring at the floating sky island that was flying over, the tall and impressive silver-white figure was holding a faint blue blade. Marshal Marine, Buddha of Sengoku. A calm and cold voice echoed in this sea. Today, I, Shimotsuki Ryoma, want your Buddha head. What, is he the dragon-slaying samurai, Shimotsuki Ryoma? What an arrogant guy, so arrogant. That floating sky island, isn't that golden lion Shiki's ability? Also, why did he come from the Gate of Justice? On Naval Headquarters, whether it's those pirates or those Marines. At this time, they couldn't help but stop fighting subconsciously, and looked at the huge island floating in the sky with inexplicable shock. I noticed the awe-inspiring silver-white figure standing on the edge of the floating sky island, holding a dazzling blue blade, majestic and unattainable. The vast majority of Marines, even those Marine generals, although they had some previous guesses, still don't know what happened to Impel Down. At this time, when they saw the floating sky island flying from the direction of the Gate of Justice, everyone couldn't help but feel a little surprised. There is an ominous feeling. Gia ha ha ha, it's so lively. Golden Lion Shiki followed Shimotsuki Ryoma, looking down at the battlefield ahead, laughing at Sengoku and Whitebeard and saying, long time no see, Sengoku, and Newgate. Shiki, Rider, World. Narrowing his eyes, he stared at Shimotsuki Ryoma, Golden Lion Shiki, Red Earl Rider and others following him, as well as the densely packed figures behind him, most of whom were still wearing black and white striped prison uniforms. On the Crescent Bay, Whitebeard, who was holding the Naginata Kumokiri tightly, could not help but shrink his eyes. So, did you attack the Impel Down while Marine was free? What a scary guy. What he was referring to was not the strength of the dragon-slaying warrior, but the other party's plans and ambitions. Most of the prisoners who were imprisoned in Impel Down with good strength have already been subdued by him. Even Golden Lion Shiki, Red Earl Rider, Burndi World and others all formed an alliance with dragon-slaying samurai, Shimotsuki Ryoma for some unknown reason, and they seemed to be the leader of the other party. This camp is indeed a bit exaggerated. Marco couldn't help but take a deep breath, he couldn't believe his eyes. It's really frightening that so many legendary characters appear at the same time. Moreover, these guys who were once more arrogant than the other, who refused to obey anyone, and were unruly, were actually able to unite. Is it because of the dragon-slaying warrior? The person standing next to the dragon-slaying warrior is, it can't be right. The former flying pirate, Golden Lion, Shiki, Red Earl, Valoric Redfield, Demon Descendant, Douglas Bullet, World Destroyer, Burn World. Gulu. They are all great pirates who were once famous. Shiryu Aim, the former warden of Impel Down Prison, is also here. And the guys following him are unmistakable. They are all imprisoned in Impel Down Prison, criminals who have committed heinous crimes. That fool, he attacked Impel Down. No wonder, the door of justice is about to open just now. Those Marines couldn't help but swallow their saliva, their expressions changed drastically, and they cried out. Recognizing Shimotsuki Ryoma, followed by the Golden Lion, Red Earl, Bullet and others, as well as the densely packed prisoners who were following behind and grinning ferociously, I felt chilly and my scalp was numb. At this time, it is unclear what happened, but dragon-slaying samurai, Shimotsuki Ryoma and Golden Lion teamed up to attack Impel Down. Release those heinous criminals. Waves of uneasiness emerged. Speaking of which, I have always cared about something. Marine Vice Admiral the Flying Squirrel was sweating on his forehead, frowning, and said with some uncertainty, Vice Admiral Garp should have been on the high platform at first, but it disappeared after the door of justice opened. Hearing this, even the veteran Vice Admirals of Naval Headquarters such as Huo Shaoshan, Gumir, and Doberman could not help but feel their hearts skip a beat. That Marine hero, the legendary strongest Marine, will something happen to him? Could it be? Now we're in trouble. Staring at the huge island above, Suru Vice Admiral couldn't help but frown. My heart felt a little heavy. She has received urgent information from the world government. Cypher POLCPO, the top secret organization directly under the world government, suffered heavy losses. Several aces and senior agents sent out were completely wiped out. Naval Headquarters was asked to do whatever it takes to stabilize the situation and wait for the Army Commander-in-Chief Kong to lead the reinforcements. Shimotsuki Ryoma, Shiki, Yu. Buddha Sengoku, who was covered in golden light, clenched his fists. Gritting his teeth, he glared angrily at the leader Ryoma, Golden Lion Shiki, Red Earl Rider and others on the floating sky island, and his eyes sank. While deeply fearful, I also felt a little unspeakable anger. Where is Garp? Ryoma and others appeared here, but Garp, who rushed over to support them, was nowhere to be seen. Looking at the mind-numbing camp of Shimotsuki Ryoma, Golden Lion Shiki, Red Earl Rider, Bullet and others, he felt inexplicably uneasy and worried. Even for a Marine hero whose strength has not declined due to age, it would be great if he could stop the legendary, dragon-slaying samurai, by just one person, not to mention Golden Lion Shiki, Bullet and others. Especially Golden Lion. Not only has the rudder on that guy's head been removed, but also the legs that were severed in order to escape from prison have been restored. This once famous flying admiral, who roared in all directions, was indeed something that no one could look down upon. Who knows, maybe he's dead. Golden Lion, who was following Ryoma, bit his cigar and responded with a sneer, full of playfulness. Seeing his former nemesis shrunk, he felt extremely comfortable. The words were very rude, misleading the other party intentionally or unintentionally, and it hit Marine's anger. What? Vice Admiral Garp? No way. That legendary Marine hero. For a moment, many Marines' expressions changed drastically. Somewhat unbelievable, panicked, and felt uneasy. Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral Monkey D. Garp, this Marine hero whose name has spread throughout the sea, has made great achievements, and is recognized as the strongest naval soldier. Has something really happened? Golden Lion, don't try to provoke our military morale. Crane Vice Admiral, with his wise eyes, directly said loudly, Garp's life was not damaged at all, which shows that he himself is fine, and if he hadn't been held back by the leader of the Revolutionary Army, the Revolutionary Long, do you think Nuo Wang Jiao could have come here easily? Here. What? The leader of the Revolutionary Army. Not only the Marines, but also the Whitebeard pirates and the pirates under it couldn't help but be shocked, and some couldn't believe it. Some people didn't expect that except for legendary characters such as dragon-slaying samurai and Golden Lion Shiki. Even the Revolutionary Army showed up. You should be lucky. If the Revolutionary Dragon hadn't appeared, this Marine hero would have turned into a corpse. The young and majestic figure of Long Ma stood there with his silver hair flying and his robes flying. Looking down at Suru Vice Admiral, Marine Marshal Sengoku and others, he spoke calmly. The next moment, Suru Vice Admiral did not wait for a rebuttal. Ryoma looked back at the prisoners behind him, whose eyes were blazing, their blood was boiling, and they were already impatient, and he chuckled. You who have been imprisoned in the dark place of Impel Down for a long time, I believe you are already impatient, right? Then let's get started. Oh. Gia ha ha ha, let's start, the feast of killing. Rumble. Golden Lion Shiki laughed. Directly controlling the floating sky island to descend forward, it crushed Marineford, which was several hundred meters away. Rumble. Clatter. The sound was deafening and the waves were huge. The whole of Marineford shook violently. Lord Ryoma. Kill all these despicable guys. Gia haha, please give the order, we can't wait. These Marines, we can't let them go. The torture Lousy suffered in Impel Down will be paid back to them 100 times today. Marine, feel the anger of us Impel Down prisoners over the years. In the eyes of Sengoku, Aokiji, Akainu and others, their colors changed with horror. On the huge floating sky island, these fierce-looking prisoners all raised their weapons and laughed ferociously. Then, let's kill as much as you want on this battlefield. Let the flames of hatred turn into red lotuses, let this place become a real hell, let the world hear your anger and roar, and vent to Marine the endless anger and resentment you have had for a long time. Following the dragon horse holding the blue blade high, the calm and majestic voice fell, come on. Use the blood and heads of these Marines to swear your loyalty to me. Oh. Revenge. Countless prisoners' faces turned red and their fighting spirit was high. I felt that the blood in my body was boiling and wanted to be vented, so I was shouting hysterically. Recalling the humiliation and torture that he and others suffered in Impel Down, the flames of hatred and murderous intent were revealed in his eyes. It resounded throughout the sky, with great momentum and murderous intent. Shocking. Not only the Marines changed their colors, but also the pirates in the Whitebeard Pirates camp couldn't help but change their colors, and some of their scalps went numb. It is unimaginable that these guys who have been imprisoned in the deep-sea prison Impel Down for too long and have been tortured will have their inner hatred completely mobilized, and how terrifying it will be when it fully explodes. Those guys should have been executed without leaving any trace. The whole body was filled with extremely hot magma, and the heat wave was rolling. Admiral of Headquarters Sakazuki looked gloomy and spoke coldly. These guys who are full of hatred are more troublesome than the Whitebeard Pirates. Admiral Aokiji of Naval Headquarters also had an ugly face and was even more worried. Currently, Marine has to divide his forces to stop the Red Hair Pirates. At present, we are only facing the Haku Pirates and we are not going all out. But there is no stopping the dragon-slaying samurai, Shimotsuki Ryoma, who brings these menacing, powerful, and perhaps tens of thousands of Impel Down criminals. This is the center of the world, Naval Headquarters Marineford. We, Marines, shoulder the great responsibility of defending world peace and justice. The entire army is ready to face the enemy. The golden Buddha shone brightly, and Marine Marshal Sengoku's steady voice echoed throughout the square. The whole world is watching this war. We can fight to the death, but we must not lose. The commander-in-chief of the army, Kong Jung, is leading the reinforcements. Until then, Marines' justice must not take a step back from evil. BFDH Sengoku's voice is full of unshakable determination and has an indescribable appeal. Like a beacon that leads the way in the dark night, the Marines who were inevitably frightened by the ferocious momentum erupted by thousands of Impel Down criminals, with panic on their faces and fear in their hearts, were like enlightenment and couldn't help but feel a huge shock all over their bodies. They calmed down one after another. Marshal Sengoku. Justice. Never back down. Use our power to bring justice to the pirates. Don't panic, everyone, the reinforcements led by Marshal Kong will be here soon. We must hold our ground. Everyone, come on. Justice will win. Marine will win. All the Marine captains shouted, and their morale was greatly boosted. Not afraid of death, he rushed towards the pirates in the camp of the Whitebeard Pirates. And under the command of Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral Flying Squirrel and others, some troops were directly dispatched to kill a large number of prisoners who rushed up from the floating sky island that bordered the other side of Crescent Bay. Kill all these Marines. A large number of prisoners with red eyes and extremely vicious smiles. He rushed to Crescent Bay with murderous intent and fought with those Marines. Boys, kill Marine and rescue Ace. Whitebeard Edward Newgate also raised his right arm and shouted at the pirates rushing to Crescent Bay. Oh oh, Daddy, rescue Ace. The pirates also rushed forward regardless of their own safety and started a fierce confrontation with the Marines. Clang, bang bang, boom boom. For a time, there was constant sound of gunfire. The three parties were constantly fighting, as if it was the end of the world. People kept falling in a pool of blood, and their broken bodies and limbs were splattered with blood. The battle was brutal and extremely bloody. Want to rescue Fire Fist Ace? Dreaming. Standing there, staring at the swordsman Ryoma, Golden Lion Shiki and others who had not yet taken action, Marine Marshal Sengoku spoke coldly. He turned his head and shouted directly at the executioner on the execution platform, "Execute Fire Fist Ace immediately." Yes, two executioners standing on the execution platform. Without hesitation, he turned around and stared at Fire Fist Ace, who was kneeling there, bound by seastone chains, and raised the long knife used for execution high. What? There are still 2 hours until the public execution time. Those fools. Don't you have to keep your word to pirates? Quick, stop them. Sengoku's sudden order. All the pirates couldn't help but change their expressions, and were inexplicably shocked and angry. He rushed towards the execution platform like crazy, but how could he make it in time? Sengoku, you guy, do you really think I can't stop you? Whitebeard's eyes darkened and he swung his naginata. A blazing halo emerged. Suddenly he struck out in the direction of the execution platform. Kang Yi, boom, dust flew all over the sky, and massive amounts of magma sputtered. Thick smoke billows. A red figure stepped on Whitebeard's blade. Sakazuki Admiral. The Marines' pupils shrank sharply, and they were all excited after seeing the person who made the move. Whitebeard, don't try to stop the execution. Admiral Akainu clenched his fists and stared coldly at the ugly-looking Whitebeard. With the addition of variables such as the swordsman Ryoma, Golden Lion and others, even if the original plan cannot be completed and the Whitebeard pirates are wiped out, the public execution of Fire Fist Ace must be completed. Otherwise, not only will Marine lose face, but even the prestige of the world government will be greatly damaged. Once you can't deter those guys who are unwilling to settle down and are ready to take action. At that time, the entire sea will inevitably go berserk and fall into unprecedented turmoil, which Sakazuki will never allow. Go away, Magma Kid. Frightened and furious, Whitebeard raised his left fist. Condensing a blazing halo, it rushed towards Yin with all its strength. But the stern-looking Sakazuki was not afraid at all, and his fist of extremely hot magma was blasted out, colliding with Whitebeard. Boom, boom, a lot of magma sputters. Huge air waves rolled up wildly, making it difficult for people to open their eyes. He was even a little unsteady and about to be thrown away. The two collided and confronted fiercely there, and fell into a stalemate. Seeing that the execution blade was about to pierce Fire Fist Ace's chest, even Whitebeard couldn't help but change his expression, but was blocked by Akainu and had no time to stop him. Heartbroken, however, the swordsman Ryoma, Golden Lion Shiki, Red Earl Rider and others were there to watch with cold eyes. He had no intention of helping to save anyone. In an instant, invisible fluctuations hit. The blade flew up, and the two figures' eyes turned white and they fell down. In fact, not only them, but also the hundreds of Marines behind the naval headquarters building all fell down at this moment and lost consciousness. 3 figures rushed up from the direction of the naval headquarters building. Ace, we are here to save you. Among them, a young man wearing a straw hat shouted excitedly towards the execution platform. What? There was silence. Everyone was stunned. Unexpectedly, Fire Fist Ace's execution was prevented. The sudden scene made Marine Marshal Sengoku's expression change drastically. He narrowed his eyes and noticed the old figure at the head of the group who was running towards the execution platform at an alarming speed. He couldn't help gritting his teeth and yelling, "Pluton Rayleigh, you! The golden light is dazzling." The huge Buddha jumped up violently. Angrily, he slapped Pluton Rayleigh hard at Pluton Rayleigh, who was about to rush to the execution platform to save others. Kai. At this time, the silver-white figure flew over like a ghost. An extremely terrifying wave came, impacting the spirit of the unprepared Buddha Sengoku, who was just about to attack Pluton Rayleigh, making him unable to help but fall into a trance. Buddha Sengoku, I accept your head. The blue blade tore through the atmosphere like lightning, drawing a dazzling trajectory. That ultimate sword is as fast as lightning. bravely slashed at the huge Buddha head. Show no mercy. Boom. In an instant, the hair on the Buddha's Sengoku stood on end. But the right palm he waved had already hit Pluton Rayleigh. There's no way to hold back at all. This moment. Everyone's pupils could not help but shrink sharply, and they felt cold. No one could have imagined that Shimotsuki Ryoma, who was originally standing on the floating sky island, would take action at this time. Moreover, the sharp sword was so fierce and the timing was so accurate. Even Suru Vice Admiral and others couldn't react at all. Shimotsuki Ryoma, Aokiji, Akainu, Suru Vice Admiral and others. Their eyes were about to burst and they shouted angrily, but it was too late to stop him. Brush. However, Ryoma's eyes narrowed. He seemed to have foreseen something, but his eyes were cold. The sword's momentum did not change, and it struck down at the huge head in front of him. Between the electric light and flint, a pitch-black blade pierced forward like lightning. As fast as lightning, no one can save him. In an instant, the extremely sharp blue blade, carrying the terrifying weapon, 067, Haki, has already struck down hard. Kai, rumble, ah, sparks sputter. The shock wave shattered large areas of the ground and was deafening. A fierce hurricane swept away. Along with the shocking blood flowers, a bloody golden head flew up. Kang, an extremely sharp black knife penetrated from Longma's chest, and blood spattered. He drew his sword instantly, bringing out a large amount of blood. Hawkeye's pupils shrank sharply, looking at the dragon and horse in front of him in disbelief. He didn't intend to make a sneak attack just now, just to make the opponent withdraw his sword. He didn't expect that this dragon-slaying samurai would be so ruthless. Even if he was seriously injured, he would not give Marine Marshal Sengoku any way to survive. This scene made everyone stunned. Marshal Sengoku. The expressions of Marine generals such as Suru Vice Admiral, Sakazuki, Aokiji Kuzan, etc. changed drastically, and they screamed. Looking at Sengoku's bloody, tall body without a head, and the flying Buddha head. They all couldn't help but their eyes were about to burst, and they were extremely frightened and angry. What's more, I didn't expect that among the 7 warlords of the sea, Hawkeye, who had his own way of doing things, would take action against Shimotsuki Ryoma at this time. Pluton Rayleigh, who was knocked back by the shock wave before Sengoku's death, stared at the two silhouettes that collided with each other in surprise. Gia haha, well done. Golden Lion Shiki laughed. I have seen Ryoma's terrifying recovery ability before. He didn't believe that such an injury could endanger his life. That lunatic, Red Earl Rider, Douglas Bullet, Burndy World and others couldn't help feeling a little chilly. No one expected that Ryoma would choose to trade his injuries for his life and cut off the head of Marine Marshal Buddha Sengoku. Marshal Sengoku. How could this happen? It was just a moment of carelessness. Lord Ryoma, that's Hawkeye. Marshal Marine Sengoku's head was chopped off. Guru, dragon-slaying warrior Shimotsuki Ryoma. That guy with Hawkeye actually. The Marines, pirates, and prisoners who were fighting were all stunned. Looking with some disbelief at the Buddha Sengoku whose head was beheaded by Shimotsuki Ryoma, the 7 warlords of the sea Hawkeye who took action brazenly, and the Shimotsuki Ryoma who was penetrated by the Black Sword Knight. The pupils shrank sharply, and those marine captains were even more stunned. I couldn't believe my eyes, I almost collapsed, and my face was ashen. Marines Marshal, the highest authority of justice, Buddha Sengoku, who had just spoken out loudly and righteously declared that justice will prevail, was suddenly killed in front of everyone. The head was chopped off. This is really unacceptable and makes them a little angry. Some people were panicked, their faces turned pale, and they were sweating profusely. But more people's eyes turned extremely red in an instant, glaring fiercely at the culprit, Shimotsuki Ryoma. Kid, do you want to dance too? Shimotsuki Ryoma's face was indifferent as he was pierced through the chest by Kurotuya and bleeding from the corner of his mouth. He didn't even look at the bloody wound on his body, as if he was not the one who was stabbed through the chest. That gaze, which was sharper than an eagle and made people tremble, stared coldly at Dracula Mahawk, the Eagle Eye, who suddenly intervened. I didn't expect this guy to suddenly intervene. The purpose was not to sneak attack him, but to get him to change his power. However, it would be too much to underestimate him. Shimotsuki Ryoma. He said that he would remove the head of Marine Marshal Buddha Sengoku today. In other people's eyes, this injury was almost equivalent to a serious injury. What did it mean to him? As a beneficiary of the ageless surgery, his physical functions have already exceeded the limits of ordinary humans, and his recovery ability is far beyond ordinary people's imagination. It didn't take long for this injury to heal on its own. Buzz, the next moment, his eyes suddenly froze. The dark red lightning danced like a dragon and a snake, intertwining and shining violently. Boom, boom, the violent impact spread in all directions. Observation Hockey suddenly felt some chills standing on end. He predicted something and rushed out without hesitation. In an instant, he flew out with Armament Hockey's defensive eagle eyes. Kai, there are no signs. The bright sword light struck hard. Boom, the extremely thick light blue slash was so dazzling that people subconsciously closed their eyes. The murderous aura ripped through the atmosphere and shot out like lightning. Kang, the jet black gorgeous blade lay horizontally there. He blocked this terrifying first blow, but was shocked to the point of numbness in his mouth. What a heavy blow. The flying hawk's eyes were horrified, and he retreated violently. The ground cracked as he stepped on it, and he barely managed to stabilize his body. I only saw the ground, I don't know when. There was a bottomless, shocking knife mark. But what's even more unbelievable is that the wounds on Longma's chest are constantly healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. His injuries, hiss. Such a serious injury can be recovered directly. What a monster. What kind of exaggerated self-healing ability. No wonder you dare to bear the knife from Hawkeye directly. This monster, Golden Lion, Red Earl Rider, Bullet and others couldn't help but shrink their eyes. Some gasped, inexplicably shocked. I once again have a deeper understanding of how monster this, dragon-slaying warrior, is. Suru Vice Admiral Sakazuki, Kuzan and other Marine senior executives couldn't help but feel cold and their scalps were numb. His face was extremely ugly. Any swordsman, once he hears the name, dragon-slaying samurai, will involuntarily recognize that the opponent is already at the pinnacle of swordsmanship. Even if he knows he is defeated, he still wants to challenge, to understand the unfathomable and unfathomable things that ordinary people can't do. The realm of swordsmanship that can be reached. A pair of falcon-like eyes stared intently at Shimotsuki Ryoma in front of him, and his awe-inspiring fighting spirit dissipated. With you here, I will only be humiliating myself if I dare to call myself the world's greatest swordsman. I am Dracul Mahawk, please advise. Holding the black sword in his hand, Hawkeye's face was extremely solemn, and he spoke in a deep voice. I'm sorry just now, I didn't expect you to kill Marine Marshal Buddha Sengoku even at the risk of serious injury. From the beginning, his eyes never left the former dragon-slaying warrior. Therefore, Long Ma had already reacted as soon as he took action. Lima's speed really shocked Mahawk. He actually rushed to the execution platform in an instant. Apart from taking action directly and forcing the opponent to change the direction of the sword, there was nothing he could do to stop it. Husband, Medusa's ghostly figure arrived here immediately. Seeing that the wound on Ryoma's chest was still repairing itself, he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. But he was even more frightened and angry, staring at Mahawk with murderous intent. You guy. You, it's unforgivable, you dare to hurt your excellency. Before Medusa could take action, someone was faster than her. Brush. Golden light illuminated the entire battlefield. The atmosphere was suddenly torn apart, and the hair on his hair stood on end like lightning, and his expression changed as Hawkeye kicked violently. Kang. Sparks sputter. The pitch-black blade narrowly blocked this lightning-fast strike. Boa Hancock, staring at the beautiful figure in front of him, his pretty face was full of anger and murderous intent, his pupils shrank sharply, he was a little surprised and couldn't believe it. What? That was just now. Admiral Kizaru's. It's Porosalino's ability. Not only Hawkeye himself, but also Aokiji, Akainu, Crane Vice Admiral, and even Marco, Diamond Josie, and others couldn't help but narrow their eyes and were a little stunned. Looking in horror at the 7 warlords of the Sea Empress Boa Hancock who suddenly attacked Hawkeye. What the opponent just demonstrated was the Logia Sparkling Fruit ability of Admiral Kizaru, who had just sacrificed himself a few days ago. Brush. But the next moment, Hawkeye was not given a chance to recover. A ghostly ice blue shadow suddenly passed by. Wearing high-heeled shoes and carrying high-end armament, Haki's showy legs instantly opened up the atmosphere. Mercilessly, he kicked Hawkeye in the head. Bang! An accident made Hawkeye feel cold, but he had no time to dodge and was hit by Hechi fiercely. It crashed through one tall building after another. A large amount of smoke and dust rose up from the ruins. Shocking, scalp-numbing. That woman is not simple. Whitebeard narrowed his eyes, a little surprised. He could naturally feel how dangerous that woman in the aqua-blue Cheongsam, who was elegant and had an extraordinary temperament, was. Emperor Boa Hancock of the 60th third generation of Nine Snakes has met Lady Medusa. Under everyone's gaze, the always cool and arrogant Empress Boa Hancock actually knelt there on one knee and took the initiative to ask Medusa. Shaw salutes. Her beautiful eyes are full of surprises, as well as unspeakable admiration and respect. Boa Hancock, I know you, girl. You came to Impel Down specifically to see me. I wonder if you have any intention. Medusa looked at Hancock. The anger on her face disappeared and she touched Hancock's hand. Head, smiled and said, "Get up, child. Ms. Medusa, this is what I should do." In front of this vampire queen, who is equivalent to a god, and has been worshipped by the Nine Snakes fighting nation for hundreds of years, Hancock is not arrogant and positions himself correctly. Could it be that she is the vampire queen who has been frozen in Impel Down for hundreds of years? Hearing this, Vice Admiral, he thought of something and his expression changed drastically. The Amazon Lily Emperor, who has gained a special ability and is immortal for hundreds of years. Hearing this, Aokiji, Sakazuki and others also couldn't help but look at Medusa in disbelief. They couldn't help but gasp and their expressions darkened, even more ugly. With just a moment of carelessness, the head of the dignified naval headquarters, Marshal Sengoku, was cut off in public. A dragon-slaying samurai, Shimotsuki Ryoma, was enough to make people fearful and frightened. Not to mention that there are so many monsters with amazing strength gathered around him. If Marshal Kong cannot lead the reinforcements over as soon as possible, Marine may be wiped out. At this time, Sengoku's body lying there has been released from the Great Buddha state and restored to its original state. Ryoma did not hesitate and moved suddenly. He grabbed his head and body. The rare phantom beast species, the Renren fruit, and the giant Buddha form ability cannot be missed like this. You don't even think about taking away Marshal Sengoku's head. Crane Vice Admiral and the rushing Aokiji were so angry that they rushed over immediately. Brush, stay out of the way. Between the electric light and flint, two beautiful figures with different looks stood in front of them in an instant. The beautiful long white legs, carrying Haki, kicked out violently. Call out. The light blooms. Hancock arrived brazenly. The atmosphere was torn apart by those fiery legs. Observation Haki Aokiji, who foresaw the crisis, blocked it with both arms in front of him, and his whole body was swept away like lightning by the astonishing force. It turned into a ball of broken ice, but in the blink of an eye, the figure condensed out again. Looks ugly, but the less powerful and older Crane Vice Admiral was not so lucky. Bang! In the blink of an eye, he was kicked away by the terrifyingly fast Medusa. Wow! His face was distorted and he was vomiting blood. It hit the building behind heavily. Crane Vice Admiral. Fight them! The Marines. Expressions changed drastically and they shouted. In naval headquarters, this Marine flower, who was once the same generation as Marine Marshal Sengoku and Hero Garp, never married and dedicated his life to justice. He obviously has a very high prestige and is loved by everyone in naval headquarters. He rushed forward without fear of death. The feeble whine of the ants. Medusa's cold face turned around and looked at the Marines with red eyes who wanted to rush forward, with a look of indifference. Buzz, the incomparable conqueror's Haki came out. It was like a violent gust of wind sweeping past. A Marine froze, his eyes turned white, and he fell to the ground one after another. Lost the power to resist. Conqueror's Haki, Ghost Spider, Doberman and other Marine Vice Admirals couldn't help but look ugly when they saw this. Ah, the body of Marshal Sengoku. Marine yelled. Those Marine elites looked at Shimotsuki Ryoma with eyes wide open. Go on. Ryoma grabbed Sengoku's body and threw it high into the air without even raising his head. I saw a huge and ferocious black eagle chirping and flying over like lightning. The extremely sharp claws directly grabbed Sengoku's bloody body and head respectively, and flew towards the floating sky island. Ancient species bird fruit giant eagle form. On the way to naval headquarters, Shimotsuki Ryoma directly selected a prisoner who was imprisoned on the 6th floor of Impel Down, Grandmaster Taijutsu, with good strength, and gave him this devil fruit. Gia ha ha ha. Golden Lion Shiki flew over, clenched his fists and shouted, "Young men, Martial Marine's head has been taken off by Lord Ryoma, kill these Marines in one go. Destroy him and their fragile justice." Quote. Oh, long live Ryoma-sama. Come on, kill these Marines. Countless fierce prisoners were flushed and full of excitement. They all raised their weapons and shouted, their blood boiling and their morale high. Smiling ferociously, he killed those Marines. Avenge Marshal Sengoku. Take back the Marshal's body. Swear to the death to defend justice. The Marines, led by Ghost Spider, Flying Squirrel and others, rushed forward without fear of death. His eyes were red and full of hatred, shouting slogans to take back Sengoku's body. Treating death as if it were home, these prisoners are waiting to be killed. But unfortunately, anger cannot directly make people stronger. These criminals from Impel Down are each stronger than the last, and their numbers are staggering. They are simply not something that the elite Marines can fight against. At this time, the morale is even higher, murderous and fierce. He immediately gained the upper hand. Marine's battle line continued to retreat. Marine kept screaming and fell into a pool of blood. The prisoners with hideous faces and grins were stabbed through the chest. Stepping over the bloody corpses, they continued to charge and fight. The battle was brutal, with broken bodies and limbs flying everywhere, and blood staining the earth red. The sky, I don't know when, quietly cast a layer of clouds. It seems that he cannot bear to see the failure of justice. Bang bang, boom boom, clang, kill, destroy these Marines. Everyone, come on, take back the Marshal's body. Justice will never flinch. With our passion, we will defend justice to the death. Gia haha, bullshit, justice is so fragile. On the tragic battlefield. The sound of guns, the clash of gold and iron, shouts, screams, etc. were continuous and extremely noisy. People kept falling in a pool of blood, including pirates, prisoners, and Marines. As for Marine, I don't know at all. The moment Shimotsuki Ryoma just declared war, people on the floating sky island had already moved out the large surveillance phone bug snatched from the Impel Down prison from Capone Bedge's body. The entire battlefield was directly photographed. And the signal was directly opened and broadcast to the world. And on the Sabayati archipelago. In the huge square. After the original surveillance screen was cut off, the image phone bug, which had remained silent, independently captured the signal coming from naval headquarters. The originally dark screen lit up one after another. The anxiously waiting reporters, civilians, nobles, business travelers, and pirates all couldn't help but be overjoyed. But the next moment, seeing the picture above, everyone couldn't help but change their color. His face turned pale. Dragon-slaying samurai, Shimotsuki Ryoma, at some point joined forces with Golden Lion Shiki, and attacked Impel Down, the world's largest deep-sea prison, bringing a large number of prisoners to the battlefield. Even the most notorious pirates such as Red Earl Baloric Redfield, Douglas Bullet, and World Destroyer Burndy World were all released. Since the phone bugs can capture images on their own, these people can clearly see the images on the battlefield that should not be missed. No one expected that Pluton, Silver Rayleigh, once known as Roger the Pirate King's right arm, would also appear in Marineford and prepare to save Fire Fist Ace. But what makes them even more frightened is the former world's greatest swordsman, dragon-slaying samurai, Shimotsuki Ryoma. He actually beheaded Marine Marshal Buddha Sengoku directly. Moreover, after being pierced through the chest by Dracul Mahawk's black sword, Shimotsuki Ryoma's wounds actually healed at a speed visible to the naked eye, making him an unkillable monster. Followed by, even on the battlefield, Marine continued to be defeated. Gulu. The Marshal of Naval Headquarters was beheaded in public. What kind of monster is that? It's okay even if it's stabbed in the chest. Did I hear you correctly? The great pirate who roars across the sea, Golden Lion, Shiki, just called him Ryoma-sama. Did Golden Lion Shiki be conquered by him? The legendary world's greatest swordsman, dragon-slaying samurai, Shimotsuki Ryoma, is really too powerful, and he looks incredibly young. Hawkeye Mihawk felt ashamed in front of him and gave up the title of the world's greatest swordsman. Oh my god, Marine can't stop these guys. Is this sea going to be destroyed? Where will the future of the world go? Tragic battlefield scenes are presented one by one. Justice, in the face of evil, seems vulnerable. This made the people feel a little uneasy and frightened. Many people held their heads and cried, tears streaming down their faces, and almost collapsed. I can't help but feel pessimistic about the future. Somewhat desperate, the news was urgently reported by Cypher Pole. Swordsman Ryoma, that, actually cut off Sengoku's head in front of everyone, and even broadcast it publicly. It was clearly premeditated. The losses cannot be increased, and this war must be ended as soon as possible. In the power room on the Red Line, the 5 elders were furious and furious. He called personally again and ordered the commander-in-chief of the army, Kong, to rush over as soon as possible. Pluton Rayleigh is on the execution block. Marine yelled. All I saw was the towering execution platform. An old but extremely vigorous figure rushed forward at some point. These thugs don't even think of succeeding. Admiral of Headquarters Sakazuki looked gloomy. The lava is rolling all over the body, and the steam is amazingly hot. Looking at Pluton Rayleigh, who instantly rushed to the execution platform and wanted to use Shikai Fire Fist Ace, his eyes were bloodshot and full of determination. Just rush forward. Marshal Marine died in the battle, but Fire Fist Ace was still rescued. Where will Marine's face be placed? Where will justice lie? A loud roar broke through the air. Sakazuki's hair stood up as observation hockey anticipated the crisis. Instantly transformed into elements and turned into magma. Almost at the same time. Kai, an extremely sharp blade with an incandescent halo and an astonishing power of shock swept over. Astonishingly, it was Whitebeard who took action directly. Rumble, magma sputters, violent shock waves kept coming. The surrounding earth is constantly cracking and collapsing. A large number of buildings collapsed one after another, just like the end of the world. Whitebeard, massive amounts of magma gathered. Transformed into a tall figure. With hot lava flowing all over his body, Akainu clenched his fists and stared at Whitebeard in front of him with cold eyes. The right ear is dripping with blood. A small piece was suddenly cut off. Don't even think about getting in the way, you magma kid. Looking at Pluton Rayleigh on the execution platform, Whitebeard, who was relieved, sneered there. Return what Sakazuki said earlier to the other party. Pluton Rayleigh, on the execution platform. Fire Fist Ace looked at the old man wearing glasses and holding a sword in front of him. His eyes were complicated, showing hatred and resistance involuntarily. Ace, looking at Ace who hated him a little and wanted to say something, Pluton Rayleigh said calmly, no matter how much you hate Roger, I have to tell you that no matter what, he will always be the best person in this world. One of the people who loves you the most. He trailed off. The blade in his hand carries hockey. In the eyes of all the Marines who suddenly changed their colors, all the pirates who were overjoyed, and all the prisoners who watched indifferently, the extremely strong Seastone Lee's chain was severely cut off. Balls of flames burst out. Fire Fist Ace charged. Ace, Luffy and Sabo, the Straw Hats who followed Pluton, shouted in surprise. You are you, he is him. No matter what, I am still very grateful to you, Pluton Rayleigh. Thank you. Looking at Pluton Rayleigh in front of him, Fire Fist Ace pursed his lips and smiled with relief. Bowed politely to Pluton Rayleigh with gratitude. Luffy, Fire Fist Ace rushed down and hugged Luffy, who was full of joy. He rushed over and hugged himself. Then he looked at the emotional Sabo looking at him from the side, and his eyes narrowed. Who are you? Ace, he is Sabo. Our brother Sabo, he is not dead. He was shot down by the Celestial Dragon's cannon and fell into the sea, but he was saved by my father. Later he lost his memory and joined the Revolutionary Army. This time, Marine revealed his target for execution, and Ace, the Fire Fist, who triggered the war, was rescued. This is undoubtedly a huge blow to all Marines. Their morale was extremely low. Pluton, the pirates are indeed rotten, and the bones still exude the aura of pirates. Seeing Pluton Rayleigh actually save Fire Fist Ace. Sakazuki, who was dragged by Whitebeard and unable to separate himself, was furious and yelled at Ghost Spider, Doberman and other Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral, no matter the cost, we must keep the evil fire of Fire Fist, Ace. Yes, Sakazuki Admiral, kill, suffer death, Fire Fist Ace. It's about Marine's face, anyone can leave, but you can't. I can't say anything to make this devil's bloodline of yours leave safely. A large number of Marine captains responded in unison. Each one was full of determination, brandishing their weapons, and rushed towards Fire Fist Ace, Pluton Rayleigh and others regardless of their own safety. Mihawk, whose head was bleeding and looking a little embarrassed, looked on indifferently. He directly put Hidoi on his back, with no intention of taking action for Marine again. Previously, he just wanted to fight against the swordsman Ryoma. But in the current situation, as long as he takes action. The two women next to him were afraid that they would go crazy and attack him. Moreover, Red Earl Rider, Burndy World, Bullet and others are still watching and have not joined the battlefield. As expected, I said pirates are unreliable. Hawkeye's unusual behavior made Admiral of Headquarters Aokiji, who had originally been counting on the great swordsman to take action again, his eyes darkened and disappointed. Come yet, suddenly I felt something. Shimotsuki Ryoma looked towards the sea. An unknown giant bird, carrying a large number of guys with amazing auras, rushed over. Shimotsuki Ryoma. An angry shout came from the sky. Most of the people on the battlefield couldn't help but look over subconsciously. I saw a giant bird with a white body and an unknown species swooping over. One after another, figures with astonishing auras rushed down. Marshal Kong, Aokiji, Akainu, Ghost Spider, Doberman and others all couldn't help but be overjoyed when they looked at the tall and muscular old man at the head. It's Kong, the commander-in-chief of the army. Our reinforcements are coming. Some marine who was about to despair. Hope was rekindled again, almost to tears of joy. Morale boosted, as the troublesome guy coming. Looking at the opponent he had defeated. Red Earl Rider's eyes narrowed and he had no intention of rushing forward again. Although the results were not as generous as expected, they were almost there. There was no need to fight the world government to the end. I glanced at the Golden Lion that had flown to the outskirts of Marineford at some point. It didn't intervene in the battlefield at all, but flew past the Marine warships from time to time. He knew clearly that it was time to retreat. Moria, where are you going? At this time, Ryoma did not directly pay attention to Kong, who led a large number of strong men to come to Aokiji and others. The figure flashed. He passed directly in front of a tall and bloated figure with bandages all over his body. Gecko Moria stared at Gecko Moria who was dripping with cold sweat. Shishishishi, Heavenly Yaksha, Doflamingo, who was not far from Moria, smiled dryly. Looking at the shuddering silver-white figure in front of him, he felt a little chilled in his heart. He decisively retreated and stayed away from here. Moria, please wish yourself well. Ryoma. Moria's face turned pale and she was sweating coldly. He held two big knives in his hands, wanting to take action but being a little afraid, his bloated body trembling unnaturally. As a reward for waking me up, I will give you a chance to live. Ryoma looked at him coldly, obviously looking up, but it seemed that he was looking down on him with contempt. Surrender or die. The huge pressure made Moria breathless, and her back was already soaked with cold sweat. Those eyes that were like blades, sharper than an eagle, made people dare not look at him, and they couldn't think of any resistance. There is no doubt that as soon as he refuses, everyone will immediately fall to the ground. Thinking of the fate of Admiral of Headquarters Kizaru, Marine Marshal Buddha Sengoku, and the wound on Ryoma's chest that had been completely healed BFEJ, for some time, made his heart tremble even more. Moria held the disassembled scissors tightly, feeling entangled in her heart. I really want to say proudly on such an occasion, I refuse. But I felt a little scared, unwilling to let it end like this. Finally, he put down all his arrogance, looked at Ryoma and gritted his teeth and said loudly, as long as you can defeat Kaido, I am willing to be loyal to you. Moria naturally knows what Kaido of the Beast's Guide did in Wano-kuni. The former, patron saint, of Wano-kuni is now resurrected and will most likely not let Kaido of the Beasts go. To say so is just to find a way for one's own weakness and surrender. He who knows the current affairs as a hero. I am very satisfied with your answer. Ryoma turned around, his sharp eyes no longer looking at Moria. Although this guy has been decadent for a long time, he still has some potential. He doesn't expect to be able to fight against any monsters, but if he regains his fighting spirit and practices hard, he can still be used. The pressure that made people want to die immediately disappeared, and Moria collapsed on the ground, full of dejection, gasping for air. Then it's up to you next, kid from the Don Quixote family. He looked directly at Doflamingo, who was far away with cold eyes, and spoke calmly. I don't seem to have offended you, right? Although the distance is already tens of meters. But Doflamingo was still frightened. Cold sweat broke out, and he said with some grit. You, a celestial dragons who fell into the mortal world, should know about the national treasure of celestial dragons, right? Looking at Doflamingo, who was a little nervous, he asked bluntly. What? The people present who were subconsciously paying attention to Ryoma's every move heard this. At this moment, everyone could not help but feel their hearts pounding. The commander-in-chief of the army, Kong, admiral of headquarters Aokiji, Sakazuki, the strong men he brought with different shapes and amazing auras, as well as Whitebeard, Pluton Rayleigh, Red Earl Riley and others, all couldn't help but shrink their pupils. He cried out, looking at Schwang Ryoma and Doflamingo in shock. Celestial Dragons national treasure. Not only them, but people all over the world watching this live broadcast couldn't help but be a little surprised. Their hearts were trembling, and they all pricked up their ears in unison. How do you know? Doflamingo was shocked and looked at the man in front of him in disbelief. Regarding that national treasure, very few celestial dragons knew about it, let alone the secret in their own hearts. You don't even think about succeeding. Kong and the Cypher Pole ace agent he brought with him all changed their expressions and rushed forward in shock and anger. The murderous intention is obvious and I want to stop it. But in an instant, the ghostly figure of Ryoma. He had already rushed in front of Doflamingo and placed one hand on his head. Those sharp and terrifying eyes made Doflamingo freeze up, his hair standing on end, dripping with cold sweat, and he did not dare to move. Rumble, rumble, woo-hoo-hoo, swoosh. The earth cracked and smoke filled the air. The wind howled and the waves rolled. Although he looks a bit old, he is tall and physically strong. Kong, the commander-in-chief of the army with an M-beard, and the strong men from the Holy Land garrison and Cypher Pole he brought over. They all looked at the silver-white figure that flew hundreds of meters away in an instant with great shock and anger. Bang! Shimotsuki Ryoma, who held Doflamingo's head and didn't give him any time to struggle, had already discovered the secret of the celestial dragons, national treasure, from his memory, and gave him an unceremonious swing with his big hand. The pink figure screamed and smashed into the ruins. The entire battlefield fell silent for a moment. Marines, pirates, and prisoners all stopped fighting one after another. They all looked at the dragon-slaying warrior, Shimotsuki Ryoma, with burning eyes. Celestial Dragons national treasure. What exactly is it? Tisk, are you all here? With his silver hair flying, Ryoma looked at Kong and the guys of different shapes and amazing auras around him, and said with a smile, as expected of world government, its background is really profound. Knowing that Sengoku, his most optimistic subordinate and even the one he had designated as Marshal Marine's successor, was beheaded in public and his body was taken away, Kong's eyes were about to split and his fists were clenched. His eyes were bloodshot and he stared at the other person. Stop talking nonsense, return Sengoku's body, and get out of Marineford, Shimotsuki Ryoma. If possible, of course he hopes to keep this man here. But it's a pity that it can't be done at all. The Vampire Queen, Golden Lion Shiki, Red Earl Rider, Douglas Bullet, Burndy World and other monsters are all there. Just from the fact that several aces sent by the world government to suppress the unrest in Impel Down were eliminated in such a short period of time, and that Marine Marshal Sengoku was beheaded directly, we can imagine this dragon-slaying samurai, just how terrifying is Shimotsuki Ryoma's power. Today the world government has suffered too great a loss. If one or two more naval headquarters admirals were sacrificed, the consequences would be disastrous. The entire Marine senior management is waiting for a major change of personnel, which will also make people all over the world subconsciously question Marine's strength and whether it can defend justice. Now, the only ones qualified to take over the position of the new Marine Marshal or Admiral of Headquarters Sakazuki and Kuzan. You have to leave, but Naval Headquarters Marshal Buddha Sengoku's body, but I want to use it to sacrifice the flag. It is definitely impossible to return it to you. If you have the ability, come and grab it. Looking down at Kong, Aokiji, Akainu and others present, Shimotsuki Ryoma said indifferently. Speaking of it, hundreds of years have passed, and those useless descendants of the 20 kings who were so ambitious that they united to create the world government should also enjoy its almost done. If no one dares to sit on that vacant throne in full view of the public, and the eggless rats secretly can only sit on it quietly to entertain themselves and show off when no one is around, I will do it. It's been 800 years, and it's time for the world to change its owner. Holding a faint blue blade. His eyes were like daggers, extremely powerful, and he spoke proudly. That sonorous and powerful Haki's unparalleled voice echoed throughout Malindo. It shocked countless people present, especially the pirates and prisoners, who couldn't help but feel a little excited. He stared blankly at that extremely majestic and awe-inspiring silver-white figure. Presumptuous. How dare you criticize the world's nobles? Do you know that it is a capital offense? Shimotsuki Ryoma, are you worthy enough to sit on that vacant throne? Still trying to overthrow the world government? It's a daydream. Declaring war on the world government? That is asking for death. How can an ambitious rat like you shake the foundation of 800 years? Get out of Marineford. Sakazuki, Aokiji, Kong and others can't help but change their colors. People all over the world who were watching this live broadcast had their eyes widened and some of their faces turned pale. I never expected that someone would dare to call the world's nobles trash, directly and unceremoniously on such an occasion. Especially the aces of Cipher Pole, they were so murderous and furious that they could hardly help but rush forward. But when they were stared at by Shimotsuki Ryoma's eyes, which were as cold as a blade and seemed to pierce straight into the soul, they couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts, and could not help but feel a bone-chilling chill. This monster is really going to openly declare war with the world government. Jia ha ha ha, Lord Longma, everything is ready. Golden Lion Shiki flew over and came to Shimotsuki Ryoma's side. His words made many people change their minds. Inexplicably shocked. Even Kong, Pluton Rayleigh, Whitebeard and others couldn't help but look at the Golden Lion Shiki in disbelief. This lion, which once swallowed up the world and roared all over the world, is actually willing to succumb to others. Based on their understanding of the Golden Lion, this guy would never surrender easily even if he died. It would never be possible to simply defeat him and make him surrender obediently with just a few threats. Is that dragon-slaying samurai really that charming? Subconsciously, I looked at Red Earl Rider, Douglas Bullet, Burndy World and others. My heart was shaking. Could it be that they also? The faces of Kong, Aokiji and others changed drastically and became extremely ugly. If it was just an ordinary alliance, it would not be such a big threat. The loose alliance finally breaks down and everyone goes their separate ways. But if Shimotsuki Ryoma really wins over these guys with terrifying strength and rebelliousness in the past, it will be an unimaginable big trouble. Seeing the vaguely powerful monsters headed by Ryoma, including Red Earl Rider and Bullet, who were once imprisoned in the 6th floor of Eternal Hell in Impel Down, Kong, the commander-in-chief of the army, could not help but darken his face. This is that guy. Do you have the confidence to declare war on the world government? Dad, everyone, Ace, Captain Ace. Very good. Finally got you out. At this time, Fire Fist Ace, Sabo, Straw Hat Luffy, Pluton Rayleigh and others. They came to Whitebeard and others who had stopped fighting with Admiral of Headquarters Akainu at some point. Those. Sakazuki looked ugly. Clenching his fists, his whole body was braving the heat wave. Don't let people get close. It's fine if nothing happens. Looking at Fire Fist Ace who was full of joy and safe, he nodded with relief. Whitebeard took a deep breath and said in a deep voice to Pluton Rayleigh beside him, "Thank you, Rayleigh." He didn't expect that one day he would need to rely on his former enemy to rescue his son. It's not your style to be sentimental, but it's too early to be happy now. Pluton Rayleigh shook his head. With Whitebeard's stubborn character, in the past he would rather die than say a word of thanks to his former opponents. It seems that the years have really changed a lot. But he had a serious face, looking at Akainu, Aokiji, Kong and others who were eyeing him, and said helplessly, "I think these guys may not let us leave easily." Whitebeard, Marco and others couldn't help but feel their hearts sinking when they heard this. In the current situation, I want to leave easily. It's not easy. Sure enough, Kong, the commander-in-chief of the army, looked directly at Shimotsuki Ryoma and said coldly, Shimotsuki Ryoma, this war has nothing to do with you, get out of Marineford. If there are any accounts, we will settle them slowly in the future. The most important thing right now is not to let the Whitebeard pirates escape. In that case, at least the world government can save some face in front of the world, and if it can save a little bit, and if the Whitebeard pirates can be eliminated, the world government will concentrate its efforts on marching into the new world to destroy the dragon-slaying samurai, Shimotsuki Ryoma and the others, and also have a little less scruple. For this reason, Kong had to be willing to give up recovering the body of Marine Marshal Sengoku. That's not possible, I still have some unfinished business. Ryoma smiled. In the ugly faces of Kong and others. He looked directly at Whitebeard. Whitebeard, Edward Newgate, right? Are you interested in joining me like Shiki and Ryder? What? This guy, Red Earl Baloric Redfield and the others have indeed become each other's subordinates. Asshole, what did you say? The dragon-slaying warrior is amazing, he actually wants to recruit our dad. What a joke. The entire Whitebeard pirate group, as well as the world government camp headed by Kong, could not help but be stunned. Some of the faces changed drastically and became furious. Especially the crew members of the Whitebeard pirates glared at Shimotsuki Ryoma. Their father, Whitebeard, is one of the 4 emperors of the New World. How could he be so inferior to others? Kong and others, on the other hand, were inexplicably shocked and angry. Unexpectedly, Shimotsuki Ryoma wanted to recruit Whitebeard in front of them. If it really succeeds, it will be an unimaginable big trouble. Gia ha ha ha, Newgate, agree. Looking at Edward Newgate, Golden Lion Shiki laughed and said, at least, in him, I see something that the original Rocks didn't have. Rocks, Whitebeard, Pluton Rayleigh, Kong, Aokiji, Akainu and others all couldn't help but change their expressions. Rocks D. Zebek, the once well-deserved overlord of the sea. He has the ambition to become the king of the world, and even openly declares war on the world government. Like the dragon-slaying samurai, Shimotsuki Ryoma, he dares to directly attack the world's noble celestial dragons. Decades ago, even famous pirates such as Golden Lion Shiki, Whitebeard Edward Newgate, Big Mom Charlotte Linlin, Kaido of the Beasts, etc. all were once members of the Rocks Pirate. The original Monkey D. Garp, the naval headquarters vice admiral, was called the Marine Hero, because he teamed up with the original Gall D. Roger to defeat Rocks, a man who was so powerful that it was disturbing. So, are you just going to give in? Shiki. Whitebeard Edward Newgate, who was looking deeply at Shimotsuki Ryoma, glanced at Golden Lion Shiki, and snorted, lousy is not you. Whitebeard, as you are old and frail, you should have fully realized your previous powerlessness. You couldn't even save your own son. Red Earl Ryder, who came to Shimotsuki Ryoma's side, looked indifferent. Looking at Whitebeard, who had already been out of breath after a fierce battle with Sakazuki for only a short time, he said bluntly, in other words, even if you can get out of here today, how long can you survive a battlefield with your body in such terrible condition? Where will your sons go in a cruel place like the New World? Based on the fact that this kid you are interested in, Roger's son, may have decent qualifications, but before he can grow up, the Whitebeard pirates may have been destroyed. It wasn't that he looked down on Whitebeard. It's that Whitebeard's physical condition is worse than he imagined. If he had just continued fighting Akainu. Once the disease breaks out, problems will most likely occur within a short period of time. Leadfield, what are you talking about? Dad is in very good health and will definitely live a long life. The Whitebeard pirates will never be destroyed. The captains of the Whitebeard pirates, including Phoenix Marco, Diamond Josie and others, were all furious and glared at Red Earl Ryder. Fire Fist Ace even breathes fire from both eyes. I almost couldn't help it and wanted to rush out. But Pluton Rayleigh, who looked solemn next to him, immediately held him down. Don't be impulsive, Ace. Although the words of the Red Earl were very rude, even in their voices, they always sounded threatening. But both Pluton Rayleigh and Whitebeard himself knew very well that the other party had an aloof character and was definitely not someone who would add insult to injury. So, you want to threaten me? Whitebeard, expressionless, held the Nagi sword tightly. Shimotsuki Ryoma stared at Shimotsuki Ryoma with sharp eyes. If the other party intends to seize the world and become the true king of the world, So once the dragon-slaying samurai, Shimotsuki Ryoma leads his troops into the New World, begins to recruit troops, and expands aggressively. As one of the 4 emperors, it protects the Grand Emperor Island. In the eyes of others, the Whitebeard pirates, who occupy a huge territory, must bear the brunt. No, it's not a threat. If you want to, just be willing. If you don't want to, just don't want to. I won't force you. Shimotsuki Ryoma laughed lightly, and he shook his head directly. Edward Newgate, I know that a man like you will not give in to others easily, but I think you should think about it carefully. Anyway, I promised to Golden Lion and them to restore their youth. If you are willing to join my command, then you can naturally enjoy such treatment. Moreover, with the current state of the Whitebeard pirates, they can't get up or down. They want to reach the top but can't. If they want to retreat bravely, they will only be watched by all parties. The forces are constantly encroaching and devouring. No matter how far you go, there will be a dead end at the end. Isn't your choice to find a bright way out for your sons? Quote. What? Restore youth? Real or fake? Can such an exaggerated thing be possible? No, this guy is a monster from hundreds of years ago. Maybe he really has some way to make people immortal. Hearing this, not only Pluton Rayleigh, Revolutionary Army Kadri Sabo, and the Whitebeard pirates were all shocked, but even Kong and others could not help but change their expressions. Looking at Shimotsuki Ryoma, Golden Lion Shiki, Red Earl Rider and others in disbelief. The pirates, prisoners, and even many strong men from the world government camp couldn't help but stare at Shimotsuki Ryoma in front of him with intense eyes at this moment. How do you want to consider it? Looking at Whitebeard, whose pupils shrank sharply, looked a little unbelievable, and had a gloomy expression, Ryoma asked with a chuckle. He said nonchalantly, of course, after all, this is too sudden. You don't have to give me an answer right away. I'll give you half a month to think about it. It would be best if we could conquer the Whitebeard pirates. No big deal, just put in a little more effort, just recycle those abilities. Shimotsuki Ryoma doesn't take the Whitebeard seriously at all. Gu la la la, can you regain your youth? It's such an attractive offer. No wonder even these guys are tempted. Glancing at Golden Lion Shiki, Red Earl Rider and others, whose expressions were as usual and unwavering, and who had obviously made up their minds, Whitebeard grinned. If he had his original temper, he would naturally want to refuse. But Shimotsuki Ryoma's words made Whitebeard have to think about his sons again. He is indeed old, and his bad body can't last long. What will Marco, Ace and others do then? The New World may even sweep across the entire sea, and the struggle for hegemony in every corner will undoubtedly begin again. No one can stay out of it. Let's not talk about anything else, let's take Marco and the others away from the battlefield first. If you continue to stay here, Whitebeard knows very well what awaits the Whitebeard pirates. Dad. Phoenix Marco, Fire Fist Ace and others could not help but clench their fists and looked at their father. From the bottom of their hearts, none of them want to be inferior to others. But he also longed for Whitebeard to regain his youthful appearance and no longer have to suffer from illness. Shimotsuki Ryoma, you. Kong looked extremely shocked and angry. The other party actually wanted to take away the Whitebeard pirates, but they couldn't stop it. With Pluton Rayleigh, Whitebeard and the others here, if they really join forces with Shimotsuki Ryoma, and there are the Red Hair pirates confronting Black Arm Zephyr and others on the outside of the battlefield, the world government may not be able to get benefits today. For a moment, I felt aggrieved and furious. Not only him, but Sakazuki, Kuzan and others were also a little angry. Akainu, in particular, was extremely unwilling and wanted to fight these villains to the end at all costs. However, Marine Marshal Sengoku is dead. There is no doubt that Kong, who was once a former Marine Marshal and is now the Commander-in-Chief of the World Government Army, has a high prestige in the Marines. You can choose to let this war continue. The corners of Ryoma's mouth rose. He looked at Kong with a look of disdain, his face darkened and aggrieved. He is the Commander-in-Chief of the entire World Government Army. His reputation is quite deceiving, but in the end it is nothing more than that. Want to keep the Whitebeard pirates here and save some face? How could he be so kind and let them get their wish? The future of the Whitebeard pirates depends on you. If you are a qualified dad, I think you should think about it carefully, Whitebeard. He said lightly to Whitebeard, who was staring at him with a silent expression. That's all. If this guy refuses, meet next time. It's not just a matter of persuasion, but a confrontation with swords. There are a few good devil fruits in the Whitebeard pirates, but they are just a little more effort at best. Originally, he wanted to rescue the Whitebeard pirates. In addition to recruiting these guys, he also wanted to discredit the world government. And with guys like Kong around, it's obviously a bit troublesome to recycle it. It is impossible for the other party to rest assured that their combat power will be constantly peeping on the battlefield, watching with eager eyes. The Paramecia shock fruit, phantasmal beast species bird fruit phoenix form, Logia mara mara fruit and other abilities possessed by Whitebeard and others are certainly quite good. But if the ability person does not have matching strength, no matter how strong your ability is, it cannot shine as brightly as it should. Ryoma is not really going to fight to the death with guys like Kong here for a few devil fruits. He really forced the behemoth world government to do whatever it took and revealed all his secrets. He and the power under his command were still lacking after all. You guys, attract troops. The gorgeous J front returns to its sheath. Ryoma raised his left arm high and clenched his palm into a fist. He raised his voice and shouted at the fierce-breathing prisoners present. Let's go to New World. Oh, witnessed Shimotsuki Ryoma's shocking declaration. Countless prisoners are already excited. Following men like this, if they can really take over the world by then no matter how bad they are, they will all be heroes of the founding of the country, right? Maybe, they can also have the supreme power like the world's nobles to replace those celestial dragons. Thinking of this, the hearts of these vicious prisoners were pounding and their eyes were red. Things called dreams, wild thoughts, hearts can't help but jump in their hearts, and their eyes are extremely fiery. They all couldn't help but raise their weapons and shouted in unison, full of fanaticism. The momentum is huge and makes people change their color. Gia, New World. It's really exciting. We will follow Ryoma-sama's footsteps to the death. Hey, what are the four emperors? When the time comes, they will be trampled under the feet of Longma Tianren. These fierce criminals all left the battlefield one after another. One after another, they laughed and swaggered past those marines who had not received orders from Kong and others. Although they were full of unwillingness and anger, they did not dare to attack at will, and they were a little aggrieved. Walked towards the huge floating sky island. But their words made the crew members of the Whitebeard pirates and the pirates under their banner clench their fists and were filled with indignation. Angry and dissatisfied, gnashing of teeth. Trampling the four emperors under their feet. What does this mean for them, the Whitebeard pirates? These fools. Gia ha. At this time, Golden Lion Shiki smiled strangely and moved his fingers upward slightly. Rumble. Warship. Those fools. Under the extremely ugly eyes of Kong and others. One after another, huge marine warships broke away from the ice and water, rising into the sky. Chapter 101. Crash. Rumble. One after another, huge warships rose into the sky. The flying warship, directly under the control of Golden Lion Shiki, fell mercilessly. The marine personnel above fell one after another. Panicked, he screamed and fell into the sea. Quack. His teeth gritted loudly. Kong, Sakazuki, Kuzan and others had blazing eyes and extremely ugly expressions. But the five elders' order is to end the war as soon as possible, and even Kong, the chief master of the World Chamber, cannot violate it. I can only watch helplessly as Golden Lion Shiki uses his power to take away Marine's warship. Let's go. It's time to leave. Seeing that Shiryu and others of Rain had already led the prisoners to the floating sky island, Ryoma signaled to Medusa, Boa Hancock and others. Ryoma. Sir. The cold and faint eyes glanced at the reluctant Gecko Moria and Doflamingo, who was looking at him with dissatisfaction and resentment, causing both of them to turn pale and break out in cold sweat. If he hadn't wanted to leave Doflamingo to that kid Trafalgar Law to serve as his whetstone. Ryoma just killed this guy directly. Rumble. Crash la. Wait for Shimotsuki Ryoma and others to board the floating area. The huge floating sky island rises into the sky. No less than 20 top-notch warships guard the floating sky island in the center, making it a spectacular sight. Children, Ace has been rescued successfully, there is no need to stay here. Seeing Shimotsuki Ryoma, Golden Lion Shiki and others boarding the floating sky island one after another, Edward Newgate, who looked complicated and a little tangled, would abandon his distracting thoughts and face the crew of the Whitebeard pirate group and the pirates of his pirate groups. The thieves shouted loudly. Everyone board the ship and retreat. Go back to New World. Oh, Dad, we listen to you. Great, go back to New World. This war is finally over. Victory. Hearing to retreat. Even among those pirates who were usually very vicious, licking blood from the edge of a knife, and following Whitebeard to save people with the determination to die, many of them burst into tears, couldn't help crying with joy, and cheered loudly. There are tears of victory, tears of surviving the disaster, and tears shed for the comrades who died in the battle. Only through personal experience can we know how cruel and tragic this war is. 100,000 elite Marines are waiting in full formation. Even pirates like them who kill without batting an eye can't help but feel a little frightened, uneasy, and even want to become deserters. But under the charisma of Whitebeard, he just gritted his teeth and persevered. And those Marines, each and every one of them, BFFC, received a huge blow, full of loss and unwillingness. One after another, they collapsed on the ground, lost and lost. They actually watched helplessly as the criminals who took off the head of Marshall Naval Headquarters and the Whitebeard pirates who saved Fire Fist Ace left, which really made them a little angry and helpless. Even more confused and at a loss. Shimotsuki Ryoma. Looking at the Whitebeard pirates strutting away, the huge floating sky island in the sky, and even the 20 or 30 eye-catching marine warships. Admiral of Headquarters Sakazuki's heart was bleeding. Heat was rolling all over his body, and he gritted his teeth and roared, causing blood to flow from his teeth. There was endless anger and frustration in his eyes. If it weren't for the dragon-slaying samurai, Shimotsuki Ryoma, the Whitebeard pirates would not be able to escape today no matter what, and Fire Fist Ace, the sinful firebrand who inherited the blood of the devil, would not have been rescued openly. Even adding Pluton Rayleigh is the same. The sea is watching, the beginning of this world, the sea also knows, the end of this world. Marine sat there tired and slumped, not bothering to wipe the blood from his head. Singing softly this Marine song, a heroic song that is loved by all Marines. Gradually, the companions around him were stunned, and one after another they subconsciously sang along, and the voice became louder and louder. In case I disappear from this world, the omniscient sea will also guide. Marshal Sengoku. Woo, woo. Thinking of Marine Marshal Sengoku whose head was beheaded and whose body was not recovered. Some Marine captains were so sad that they sobbed softly, which quickly infected the people around them. Many Marines' eyes were red and they burst into tears, mourning the Marine Marshal who was usually gentle and kind to his subordinates. The Naval Headquarters Vice Admirals such as Flying Squirrel, Huo Shaoshan, Gumir, and Ghost Spider held weapons in their hands and could not help but close their eyes, and tears could not help but flow out. Even Suru Vice Admiral, who had bloodline on his lips, suffered serious injuries due to Medusa's kick, had wet eyes. Kong, Sakazuki, Kuzan and others can't help but blush. Clenching his fists and gritting his teeth. Has justice failed? Dragon-slaying samurai, Shimotsuki Ryoma, is he going to overthrow the world government and become the king of the world? The Whitebeard pirates also left with Fire Fist Ace and the others. This war, Marine, has completely failed. Marshal Marine Sengoku's head was chopped off directly by the dragon-slaying warrior. Justice Marine, why did you lose? Isn't it said that justice must prevail? Isn't Marine's justice true justice? Oh my God, where is the future of the world headed? Is this world going to end? Sabayati Archipelago, in the huge square. The battlefield scene began to officially cut off as the floating sky island took off. The whole place was dead silent, and the people's faces were pale, frightened, and lost their minds. I feel full of worry and fear about the future, fearing that my originally peaceful life will be completely destroyed. Gia ha ha ha, great, he is indeed the dragon-slaying samurai, Shimotsuki Ryoma, the world's greatest swordsman. Even Golden Lion Shiki, Red Earl Redfield, Douglas Bullet, World Destroyer Burndy World, they are willing to surrender, it is really amazing. I want to go to the new world, I want to follow him. Threaten to overthrow the world government and sit on the throne of the void that no one can ascend to. How courageous is that? Sail to the new world. I'm going to find Ryoma-sama. Oh, but there are also a large number of pirates, adventurers, and thugs whose ambitions are just around the corner. There he was laughing excitedly, full of enthusiasm, which made people change their color. Not only the Sabayati archipelago, East Blue, West Blue, South Blue, North Blue, and even the Grand Line kingdoms, but everyone who watched the live broadcast of the battlefield was inexplicably shocked. There are countless young people who are unwilling to be mediocre and unwilling to settle down. There is a blazing flame called ambition, burning in your heart. East Blue, Logue Town. In front of the former execution platform of One Piece Roger. Shimotsuki Ryoma is worthy of being the world's greatest swordsman in the past. He is so haki. A delinquent boy with green hair, a nose ring, and a fierce face stared blankly at the big screen in front of him that had long been closed and turned dark, his eyes blazing and full of admiration. He took out the wanted posters and newspapers that he had collected in his arms. Without hesitation, he tore it to pieces and trampled it hard under his feet. What Straw Hat Luffy? Compared with this adult, he is just a weed on the roadside. He just got lucky. Vaguely, it was clearly a wanted order for the Straw Hat Pirates and related reports. I have decided, I want to go to sea, and I want to follow that Lord Ryoma. On the vast sea, giant floating Sky Island, it was guarded in the center by more than 20 large warships. At an astonishing speed, it flew towards the direction of Calm Belt Amazon Lily. Lord Dragon God, do you want to transfer Nine Snake Island to the New World? Boa Hancock was surprised. Her pet python spits out snake letters. Obediently, it curled up into a seat, allowing the cold and noble Medusa to sit on it. Well, Marine already has mature technology that allows warships to sail freely in the Calm Belt. If it continues to stay there, it will be very dangerous. There is no telling when Marine's buster call will be triggered. Really? Boa Hancock nodded slightly. She took a Marine warship directly and arrived at the Navy headquarters from the Calm Belt. Naturally, it is clear that the Calm Belt, once the nest of the Sea Kings, can no longer serve as a natural barrier to protect the Amazon Lily. Therefore, out of her trust in Shimotsuki Ryoma and Medusa, she, the current Emperor of Nine Snakes, has no intention of rejecting this lord's proposal. Then I will listen to you, sir. When the time comes, I will personally explain it to the citizens. Then husband, next step, are you going to go back to Wano Kuni directly? Medusa rested her slender white legs lightly, looked at Ryoma with her beautiful eyes and asked softly, I heard that Kaido of the Beasts, one of the 4 emperors, occupies that place. There's no rush over there Wano Kuni. Strictly speaking, even that guy from Kaido of the Beasts slaughtered Wano Kuni and ran away. Ryoma was not in a hurry at all. After all, he is not the real patron saint of Wano Kuni. It's just that the behavior was overinterpreted by some self-righteous guys. What he really cares about is whether the things he buried back then are still there. Wano Kuni was originally called the Golden Country. It's a bit exaggerated to see gold everywhere, but it shows the level of wealth. Back then, Ryoma had relied on his monster strength to take back a large amount of gold that pirates, marines and even the world government had plundered from Wano Kuni. And buried it. That will be his military expenditure to develop his power. Over the years, people have been trying to find the treasures he left behind, but all have failed. Even the Shimotsuki clan has no clues about the huge treasure. Even the first half of the Grand Line on Gaia Island. Most of the gold that should have belonged to the Sandia clan was forcibly taken away by him and given directly to Amazon Lily. Amazon Lily relies on the Nine Snakes pirates to continuously plunder and is isolated from the outside world. It is self-sufficient and gold will basically not flow out. The accumulation over hundreds of years has made the treasury much more amazing than that of an ordinary kingdom. Of course, Ryoma would not focus on Jew Snake's treasure. Besides, there is no free cash machine at New World. What is the name of Golden Emperor, Gilder Tezzolo? After taking away Shiki's floating Sky Island and Nine Snake Island, the next target is the secret scientific force directly under the world government and under the name of Marine. Ryoma had already discovered its location from the memory of that guy Porisalino. He is indeed very interested in Dr. Vegapunk, the scientist who is 500 years ahead of the current human intelligence. Not only can it create something like a pacifist, it can even create a zone-type artificial devil fruit. Although it seems to be a failure, it is really amazing. But before that, I have another idea that I want to test. Looking at the getting closer Ruskana Island below, Shimotsuki Ryoma showed a playful smile as he considered the phantom beast species, the human fruit, and the great Buddha form ability that had been stripped from the Buddha Sengoku. Since ordinary zone Renren fruit can give animals wisdom no less than that of normal humans, then the devil fruit ability of the phantom beast Renren fruit series, in addition to the increase in ability, the effect should be equally good. Anyway, if it fails, the worst possible outcome is to strip off the ability. Rumble. The huge floating sky island comes from across the sky. Blocking out the sky and the sun, the entire Ruskana suddenly dimmed. Rumble. Not long after, the entire Ruskana was shaking violently. It broke away from the sea and rose into the sky. Life is suspended above the sea. Roar, roar. The beasts were frightened, and fled in a hurry. Hancock, you should be familiar with this island, right? Go and bring up the strongest giant ape on the island. After sensing the island, there are 2 or 3 relatively powerful auras. Ryoma ordered directly to Hancock, who was standing there. His huge observation haki can clearly understand every plant and tree on the entire island. Naturally, it is clear that one of the real bosses on this island is a blue gorilla with amazing strength. On this island, there are some beasts with extraordinary strength and know how to use rudimentary haki. Select a few of the strongest ones to train, they will definitely come in handy in the future. Yes, although he didn't understand what Ryoma wanted to do, Hancock still nodded. In the blink of an eye, it turned into countless golden light rains. Disappeared in front of everyone. Gia ha ha ha, Lord Ryoma, you don't want the beasts on this island to eat this devil fruit, do you? Golden Lion Shiki asked with a smile. Shiryu Aim, Blackbeard and others couldn't help but feel their hearts skip a beat, and looked at the leader Shimotsuki Ryoma in disbelief. Feed the abilities of phantom beast species to those ferocious beasts that have little intelligence. 0.0. It's really luxury. Even Medusa, Red Earl, Bullet and others were astonished. Powerful devil fruit abilities are actually not hard to find, but there are very few guys who have enough talent and strength to match those abilities. Playing with the fruit that was covered with spiral patterns and full of mysterious magic power, Ryoma said calmly, the Renren fruit of ordinary zone can turn animals into people, with intelligence no less than that of normal humans. So this phantom beast species, this type of Renren fruit, should be no exception. Even among the guys in Impel Down, to be honest, there are very few who can catch his eye. Not to mention loyalty. Most of them, including armament haki, are at the level of an ordinary naval headquarters vice admiral, or even worse. Instead of doing this, he might as well cultivate a beast that will not betray after being subdued and has strength that exceeds the veteran vice admiral of naval headquarters. A giant ape that has acquired the ability to form a phantom species, the Great Buddha, and has unlocked true wisdom. It is capable of mastering advanced haki and various physical moves. Even if it cannot stand up to the Admiral of Naval Headquarters, it should at least be useful. At least you don't have to worry about loyalty. He didn't expect to be able to directly cultivate a monster-level strongman with just one devil fruit. Even if it is possible after all, it is destined not to be achieved in a short time. What is lacking is precisely time. A blue violent ape was lifted up into the air by Golden Lion using the ability of lion fruit and thrown towards Ruskana Island. The earthquake caused the earth to tremble violently and collapsed. Smoke and dust filled the air. Tisk, tisk, this is really amazing. Looking at the extremely ferocious giant ape, Rob Lucci, Capone Beige, Buggy, Kaku and others all had their pupils shrinking. But even more envious, I'm afraid this guy doesn't even know what kind of bad luck he has got, right? Although, once Lord Ryoma's experiment fails, he may lose his life directly. It is rarer than Logia, and it is the ability of Marine Marshal Buddha Sengoku, the phantom beast species, human fruit, and big Buddha form. There is no doubt about its power. Roar, the huge violent ape, 973, roared there. Beating the chest, like beating a drum, the momentum is so fierce that it makes people's hearts tremble and their scalp numb. But in the blink of an eye, as if being targeted by some terrifying monster, the instinct of the beast made it sweat and tremble. Medusa, Golden Lion Shiki, Red Earl Rider, Bullet, Burndy World and others were all watching it indifferently. Woo, the blue violent ape lay there, feeling uneasy. Don't dare to move. Brush. Golden light rain gathered. The beautiful figure of Boa Hancock appeared here. She looked at the giant blue ape and said to Ryoma standing there, "Sir, it is one of the few bosses on this island." Ryoma nodded slightly. He stared at the trembling and restless ape, which showed some intelligence. "Throw the devil fruit directly." The unquestionable command. "Eat it." Wu, looking at this weird fruit, Bao Yuan followed the instructions uneasily. Swallowed it directly, but the next moment, his face, which was green and fanged, turned blue. Roar. Suddenly, the man stood up, looking up to the sky and roaring. Om. The Sanskrit sound is looming, and its whole body is dazzling with golden light. The body shape continued to expand, and in the blink of an eye it turned into a huge, no less than 17 or 80 meters tall, larger than ordinary giants, and an exaggeratedly huge angry-eyed King Kong. The originally dense blue hair turned golden, the roots shining, majestic and fierce. The face that was originally green-faced and fang changed and became more like a human being. But the entire beast's body is a bit dazzling, and coupled with its huge body, just facing it can give people a huge pressure. It's hard to look directly at. The giant golden palm slapped down hard. Lafitte, Rob Lucci, Rouge, Capone Beige and others all couldn't help but feel their hearts skip a beat. One after another they retreated violently. Buzz, a huge halo enveloped the land in front. Fierce and dazzling, it suddenly impacted. Rumble, the ground within a radius of tens of meters. In an instant, it was blown to pieces and turned into countless rubbles. Smoke and dust filled the air. The huge pit appears there, which is shocking. One can't help but sweat. Gulu, what a powerful force. Kaku, Buggy, Rouge, Khalifa and others all couldn't help but break into a cold sweat. I was a little shocked by the power of that golden Buddha. Ah Wu, the golden Buddha. There he was like a giant ape, beating his chest. Cheering and jumping for joy there. Woo-hoo-hoo. The sound was so powerful that a violent hurricane was rolled up, and rocks and vegetation were splashed away. Scalp tingling. Ryoma's face was calm, and his eyes, which were sharper than the blade of a knife and made people tremble, as if they were suffocating, stared at the golden Buddha. It can't help but sweat. Thump. The earth trembled, and the ground cracked like a spider web, and he knelt down there. He yelled, "Woo-woo," and after a while, he started to speak human words, but not very skillfully. Sir. Sir. Surrendering to Ryoma is surprising. Its body shrunk and its whole body was golden. It was completely different from before and no longer looked like the original blue gorilla. Instead, he maintained his human form. The body that is 8 or 9 meters tall is unbelievably strong. The fluffy hair on his head is tied up like a Buddha, and his face is fierce, like an angry-eyed King Kong. He looks very majestic and makes people dare not offend. Gia ha ha ha, this is such an interesting guy. Golden Lion Shiki couldn't help laughing. Being able to speak human words is enough to show that this guy has opened up his wisdom due to the ability of the phantom beast species, the human fruit, and the giant Buddha form. After all, it is a fantasy beast species that is rarer than Logia, the Renren fruit series. Red Earl Rider said calmly, "It is natural to be able to do this. From today on, I give you a new name, King Kong." Shimotsuki Ryoma looked at the extremely bright golden figure in front of him, who was full of restraint and awe of himself, bowing his head like a beast. At this moment, it is like a blank piece of paper. It needs, correct, guidance to apply the color he wants. Jin, gang, roar. The golden giant ape followed awkwardly, scratching its head. Then he beat his chest excitedly, full of joy, and roared like a beast. The momentum is astonishing and extremely fierce. Lucci, I'll leave it to you. Shimotsuki Ryoma directly ordered Rob Lucci, teach him to become a human first, and then let Nakazato become proficient in Shiki's physical skills. Yes, Lord Ryoma. Rob Lucci nodded. He could imagine how exaggerated his strength would be when this monster mastered advanced physical skills such as the 6 forms. At least, at present, he is by no means a match for this giant diamond ape. As for Haki's training, you, Medusa, will be responsible for it. Although King Kong can use armament Haki, he has not mastered observation Haki, and his use of weapon colors is extremely crude, and there is still a lot of room for improvement. With its extremely amazing strength, it can brutally torture the Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral. After obtaining the ability of the Phantom Beast, the Renren fruit, and the Big Buddha form, not only the defense and attack power have been amazingly improved, but also the wisdom has been directly opened. If someone guides his practice, I believe he will have great results within 2 years. This is why Ryoma chose it. 9 Snake Island. One after another, huge floating sky islands lie across the sky. Those who had Shiryu and others imprisoned and impelled down for a long time couldn't help but be a little shocked. With Ryoma, Medusa and others intimidating them, those vicious pirates would not dare to act recklessly here no matter how much they thought about women, even if they were imprisoned in the deep-sea prison for too long. One by one, they were arranged to enter the floating sky island and warships to rest peacefully. Lord Hancock, Lord Dragon God, Lord Medusa. It's unbelievable that the Emperor of 9 Snakes from hundreds of years ago is still alive. Great, you are still alive. This Lady Medusa is even more beautiful than imagined. It's so dazzling. The citizens of Amazon Lily were overjoyed to see Boa Hancock and Shimotsuki Ryoma return safely. Looking at it with some disbelief, the beautiful and noble figure next to Boa Hancock, who was no different from the portrait left in the past, was inexplicably surprised, full of excitement, and extremely enthusiastic. Many people even cried with joy. I'm sorry for everyone. After all these years, 15 years have passed and you still remember me. Seeing these citizens, I have not forgotten myself. Medusa was also a little relieved and showed a beautiful smile. When the King of Flowers peony blooms, it is incomparably beautiful and dazzling. It made many female warriors a little jealous and excited. Everyone, I have something to tell you. Boa Hancock stood up and raised his hand to silence the excited and dancing citizens. Under the gaze of these citizens who had fallen silent one after another, she looked grave and said loudly, "We can't stay in this calm belt any longer. We must move to the new world." What? In less than 2 or 3 days. As word spread of what happened on Marineford, the world was shaken and the sea was in an uproar. Marine's defeat, especially Marine Marshal Buddha Sengoku's head being beheaded in public, and the former, dragon-slaying samurai, Shimotsuki Ryoma's remarks that made no secret of his ambition, shocked the entire sea. In this battle, the world government has been disgraced and lost all its prestige. Countless careerists are ready to waver. East Blue, West Blue, South Blue, North Blue, the first half of the Grand Line. It immediately fell into unprecedented riots. A large number of pirates could no longer hold back and appeared uncontrollably. Those bustling towns were attacked one after another, and messages asking for help continued to reach the major marine branches and even the naval headquarters. Due to the sacrifice of Marine Marshal Sengoku, Kong, who had to temporarily take charge of Naval Headquarters Marineford as the commander-in-chief of the entire army, was extremely busy. Admiral of Headquarters Aokiji, Admiral of Headquarters Akainu, and Fujitora, who may be promoted to the new Marine Admiral, Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral, did not even bother to mourn for the sacrificed Marine Marshal Sengoku, and had to personally lead the warships to suppress those who the Marines were defeated and began to cause chaos everywhere, burning, killing and looting pirates. Sengoku. Now, Marineford. There are dilapidated ruins everywhere, and the blood on the battlefield has not even been washed away. The entire naval headquarters is enveloped in a depressed, sad atmosphere, full of lifelessness. Marine hero Garp's mood at this moment is complicated and painful. He was relieved that Fire Fist Ace was rescued, but even more angry that Marines suffered heavy losses. I feel extremely sad for the sacrifice of Marine Marshal Sengoku, my comrade who dedicated his life to Marine and fought to uphold justice. He was a little lost. Even, subconsciously, he believed that Sengoku would be sacrificed because of his sins. If he hadn't secretly agreed to the Pirate King Roger, secretly adopted his son Ace, and had this farce-like public execution, this wrong war would not have happened. If his son, the revolutionary Ryu, hadn't stopped him from taking action against the dragon-slaying samurai, Shimotsuki Ryoma and others at the gate of justice, the world government might not have suffered such huge losses. Even Golden Lion Shiki and others will not rush to naval headquarters so quickly, let alone have the opportunity to take action against Sengoku, who is Marine Marshal. Garp, now is not the time to be sad. Suru Vice Admiral, who was wrapped in bandages and had red eyes, looked at Garp who was sitting in front of the dilapidated execution platform, staring blankly at a pool of bloodline that had long since dried up, and yelled loudly. This time, Marine and the world government must bear the harsh consequences and terrible impact of defeat. The whole world and even the first half of the Grand Line have fallen into turmoil, and it is getting worse. Even Zephyr, the former admiral of headquarters who has long since retreated to the second line, has already launched an attack. How long will you, the Marine hero, continue to be decadent here? And above the naval headquarters building, Kong, whose eyes were bloodshot and had been sleepless for 2 or 3 days since the end of the war, had just put down his phone and looked through the window at the figure of the hero Garp and the Crane Vice Admiral on the Place d'Aulus. Sighed heavily. Bulu, Bolo. The white phone bug rang. The slightly tired Kong's eyes narrowed. Without hesitation, I answered the phone immediately. Empty. An old and majestic voice came from the phone. It's us. Your Majesty 5 Elders, what are your orders? Kong rubbed his brows and said helplessly, the mess in Marine and the riots that are starting to emerge all over the sea have already made me so anxious that I have no time to distract myself. There is nothing we can do about it. This time it was indeed our mistake. On the other end of the phone, at the top of the red line, the 5 elders of Whitebeard sighed, let the whole world see the joke between world government and Marine. We are looking for you this time to inquire about the candidate for Marine's new marshal. After all, Marine cannot be without a master for a day. At this time, it is even more necessary to inject a shot in the arm to find a way to restore the morale and confidence of all Marines. Furthermore, you, the commander-in-chief of the entire army who has resigned from the position of Marine Marshal for a long time, cannot always sit in Marineford. When Kong heard this, his heart skipped a beat. He sighed secretly in his heart, and it really came. If he and Sengoku's initial thoughts were followed, Admiral Aokiji, a dove with a gentle temperament and high prestige within Marine, would be the most suitable candidate. But now that Marine is in an unprecedented downturn, Aokiji is obviously no longer suitable. Not to mention the 5 elders, even he has to admit that the Hawk Admiral Sakazuki, who has a resolute personality, decisive and tough actions, and iron-blooded methods, is the most suitable candidate for the marshal at the moment. What do you mean by the 5 lords? We believe that Akainu is more suitable to serve as the new Marine Marshal than Aokiji. Palmela. This is an uninhabited desert island located in the first half of New World, adjacent to the edge of the Red Line and Calm Belt. It's like spring all year round here. It used to be full of wild animals, but they have all been cleared away. More than 20 large warships. Straight across there, guarding the entire island. The black muzzle is frightening. This is the new base that the Marine Science Force found after evacuating the base they had to abandon after the punk hazard poison gas leak. It is not too far from the Marine G1 fortress. If it hadn't been for the relevant information previously obtained from Porisolino's memory, Ryoma would not have been able to find the true location of the Marine Science Force so quickly. Gia ha ha ha, is this right here? It will be easy for us to find. A huge black shadow flew from the sky. In order to avoid exposing the target in advance, Longma did not directly bring everyone or even the floating sky islands over. Riding on a prisoner imprisoned on the 6th floor of Impel Down with an original bounty of 430 million Baileys, Maurice transformed into a black giant eagle after acquiring the ability of the ancient species, bird fruit, and giant eagle form. Alan is here. Didi, Steel Claw, Alan just landed in a circle. When Shimotsuki Ryoma and Golden Lion Shiki jumped off his back, the alarm suddenly sounded. The Marine troops stationed here were all shocked. They never expected that someone would invade. Is there an invasion? The location of the scientific force has been exposed. This has never happened before. Inside the fortress, the scientists who were conducting various experiments and research were all a little shocked. The CP agents who were responsible for monitoring the scientific force couldn't believe it. This was the first time in these years that the base of the Marine Scientific Force had been attacked. Enemy attack. ... The ground was shaking a little. More than a dozen tyrant bears rushed over quickly. Whoosh, whoosh. Either open your mouth or directly raise your hand. The golden dazzling light wave could not help but exude a dazzling light and shot over. Boom boom. ... Continuous explosions sounded, and the light reached the sky. Ha ha ha, are you a pacifist? That Vegapunk is really amazing. He can even make such a humanoid weapon. Golden Lion Shiki laughed. Easily avoids the light waves emitted by the pacifist. With an indifferent look on his face, Ryoma ordered directly to the Golden Lion, "Do it now. If it takes too long, it will cause serious trouble. Please feel free to leave it to me." Looking at the pacifist who couldn't help but rush up, Golden Lion pressed his right hand directly on the ice and snow ground. "Lion Majesty." Rumble. The entire ground suddenly began to wail and shake. Rumble. The strong vibration affected even the huge mountain in the center of the island. A large amount of soil, boulders, and grass fell down, and a huge fortress loomed. A spacious and huge laboratory filled with various precision instruments and electronic equipment. Oh, there was an earthquake. Dr. Vegapunk and others, who were leading several assistants to conduct a certain research, almost fell due to the sudden shock. They couldn't help but be surprised. What's going on? It seems like someone has invaded. I'll go out and take a look right away. A tall man in a black suit sat on the sofa next to him, his expression changing slightly. Rex Jeff had an ominous feeling. Boom! A punch blasted open the solid door of the laboratory made of special metal, and the black figure disappeared from the spot like lightning. This violent guy. Looking at the damaged metal door, Dr. Vegapunk narrowed his eyes and rushed towards the control room first. Go to the control room first. He thought he might see something interesting. Rumble. Crash. The sea surface was turbulent and boiling, and the entire huge island, together with a large amount of sea water around the island, rose from the ground. In just a few blinks of time, the entire island and even the 20 or so warships guarding the surrounding area were already out of the sea level, tens or hundreds of meters high. Ah, the island rises. It's the Golden Lion. You can't be wrong, this is Lion Fruit's ability. Thousands of marine elites stationed here couldn't help but pour out of the stronghold, but when they looked at the island that began to float into the sky and broke away from the sea, their expressions changed drastically and they were a little unbelievable. Report the situation to the world government and headquarters immediately. The leader, Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral Ross, broke into a cold sweat and hurriedly shouted instructions. Rumble. However, the ground in front of him surged directly. Lion Majesty. Earth coiling. Golden Lion looked at the pacifists and marine soldiers rushing towards him from afar, and couldn't help but sneer, and then pointed upwards with his fingers. Roar, roar, roar. Huge lion heads condensed out of the ground, as if they had a sense of life, surrounded these marine troops, and roared down. In a moment, the marines and pacifists were completely overwhelmed by the raging lions. Bang! Boom! A dozen or so pacifists kept emitting dazzling light waves and broke free from the bonds of the rolling earth. There were also several Marine Rear Admiral and Commodore who also jumped into the air directly on moonwalk. But what greeted them? It was densely packed and extremely sharp blazing slashes. Lion Majesty Thousand Slice Valley. Rumble. Ah, Golden Lion. Looking at the rolling, compressed, and even blood-red earth, as well as the pacifists who were ruthlessly chopped to pieces and completely destroyed, I couldn't help but feel dizzy. The Marine Vice Admiral's face became even more ugly as he couldn't help but stay away and rush towards the high-altitude island. There is no doubt that the opponent's goal is to seize the scientists of the Marine Science Force. If these guys really succeeded, he couldn't imagine what would happen. Having been stationed here for so long, he naturally knows that many of those scientists are not willing to leave their original countries, or are simply unwilling to serve the world government. It can be said that they were forcibly recruited and put under house arrest here in disguise. They have no regard for the world government, there is no loyalty at all, and several of them are simply scientific lunatics who just immerse themselves in research. If they are really taken away, they may actually rebel directly. Then, good Zhao is Golden Lion and Shimotsuki Ryoma. Why is this fool here? Seeing clearly the silver-white figure of the leader and the wild figure of the Golden Lion, the Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral Ross, who was responsible for guarding this place, had his pupils shrunk and couldn't help but sweat. Puff! A silver-white figure arrived like lightning, and the light blue light made Ross Vice Admiral's pupils suddenly dilate. Before he had time to react, the bodies were already separated. Drenched with blood, the faint blue blade flicked, and colorful blood beads flew up. Ryoma's face was indifferent, and his eyes were stern. Buzz! The extremely violent conqueror's haki suddenly emitted. In an instant, it enveloped the entire island. Thump thump. Whether it was the Marines rushing out from outside or the scientific researchers in the experimental base. One figure after another, their eyes turned white as they lost consciousness. One after another fell there. Shimotsuki Ryoma. Shimotsuki Ryoma. A roar full of fright and fury came from the direction of the fortress. The tall black figure rushed over through the air, with a somewhat terrifying momentum. The moment Rex Jeff rushed out of the fortress, he knew that the island had left the sea, and his expression changed drastically. Apart from the legendary Golden Lion, he couldn't think of anyone else who could do such a thing. With this kind of momentum, is he another CPO monster? The Golden Lion floating in the air sneered. Without saying a word, the Sakura 10 in his hand directly drew a blazing sword energy and struck towards Rex Jeff. Call out. The terrifying slash, bright and eye-catching, shot towards him. Boom, but it was directly avoided by Rex Jeff, and it blasted towards the distant fortress without losing momentum, with some roaring. Paw, paw, rushing on the moonwalk, he stared at Shimotsuki Ryoma and Golden Lion with extremely ugly expressions. Hey, the Golden Lion bared his teeth and sneered. Sakura 10 was suspended directly in midair, and her right hand was about to activate its ability, Lion Majesty. At this moment, Shimotsuki Ryoma rushed directly and stopped him. This island is too big, which affects the speed. In the blink of an eye, those miscellaneous dragons and horses were already dealt with, and they flew over directly and said calmly, just use your ability to separate that base from the island and take it away. Don't waste time. Gia ha ha ha, I'll leave it to you then. Shiki held Sakura 10 in his hand and flew directly to the base behind with a smile. Don't even think about it. When Rex Jeff heard this, his expression changed. With a sudden stamp of his feet, he rushed towards the Golden Lion like lightning to stop the opponent. Brush. The faint blue blade cut through the atmosphere in an instant. Brutally slashing at the opponent, Ryoma said coldly, don't get in the way. Kang. Rex Jeff snorted coldly, his right fist turned dark, and he struck forward without avoiding it. The fist force tore through the air and collided with the sharp blade. Strong air waves raged, making it difficult to open one's eyes. The Golden Lion directly took advantage of the gap, passed by Rex Jeff, and flew towards the fortress behind. This guy, the terrifying force that could not help but come from him made Rex Jeff feel his fists were numb and his expression changed. The whole person was pressed towards the earth by the powerful force. Dust is flying. Rex Jeff rushed right out. Clenching his fists and looking a little livid, he asked in a deep voice, are you here to get Dr. Vegapunk? The violent kicks swept up directly. The unparalleled strong wind pressure made people break out in a cold sweat. You can imagine that if you were hit in the head by this terrible blow, your head would burst open like a watermelon. Kang, holding the faint blue blade, he easily blocked the extremely fierce kick. Long Ma's silver hair was flying, his eyes were like daggers, full of terrifying strength. There is no need to talk nonsense, can you please die quickly? An indescribable sense of oppression caused Rex Jeff's complexion to change drastically. Brush. I just retreated subconsciously. The silver-white figure had already swept directly in front of him. Kai, the faint blue trajectory is dazzling. It tore through the atmosphere with an incredible trajectory and struck horizontally. The ghostly speed was simply terrifying and made people feel chilly. A piece of blood flew up. And this time, the top of the red line, the holy place Mariajoy. In the power room, when the 5 elders came to report, their expressions could not help but change drastically. Shimotsuki Ryoma, you're so brave, you actually tried to covet the marine science force. The old man with a big mustache and a birthmark on his forehead vigorously patted the desk in front of him, somewhat furious. He really didn't expect that Shimotsuki Ryoma not only learned the location of the Marine Science Force base, but also took advantage of this moment to take action. BFAA. It's probably too late to send someone there now. The blonde 5 elders looked livid and said in shock. With the terrifying strength of dragon-slaying samurai, Ryoma Shimotsuki, and the presence of Golden Lion and the others, it is impossible to stop Rex Jeff and those Cypher Pole agents and garrisoned Marines alone. The key is that given the current situation, even if we send people over for reinforcements, it will definitely be too late. The Marine Science Force, or Dr. Vegapunk, must not let anything go wrong. The old man in the flat hat, who was leaning on a cane, looked a little ugly. They all know the value of the scientist who is said to be 500 years beyond the current human wisdom. You can see it just from the incredible achievements such as Blood Factor, Artificial Devil Fruit, and Pacifist. Holding the bald head of first-generation Kitetsu, the five elders said coldly, if it cannot be used by the world government, then it must not be allowed to be obtained by that ambitious guy Shimotsuki Ryoma. Kai. The extremely sharp blade was unsheathed. It seemed that the temperature of the entire hall instantly dropped a lot. Bang! The table in front of me was strangely split in two in the middle, and collapsed suddenly, with the cut smooth. It was so fast that people couldn't tell exactly when it took out the knife. It's a pity, but it can only be like this. The Whitebeard's five elders paced and sighed. With determination in his eyes, he looked at the ace of Cypher Pole kneeling in front of him. Let Cypher Pole's agents immediately deal with those scientists, especially Dr. Vegapunk, before the entire base is completely lost. Shimotsuki flow. The astonishing momentum keeps rising. Holding a dazzling blue blade, Shimotsuki Ryoma stared coldly at Rex Jeff in front of him with his extremely sharp eyes. That terrifying energy makes people shudder, locking the opponent. Rex Jeff's face changed drastically as his right arm was dripping with blood, and there was a blood hole that was deep enough to show the bone. Shen Lan. The fierce blade cut through an incredible trajectory and came in for a killing blow. Rex Jeff's hair stood on end and his pupils suddenly widened. Boom, boom, boom. Between the electric light and flint. Fierce slashing, 1 divided into 2, 2 divided into 4, 4 divided into 8. It turned into countless sword nets, completely submerging Rex Jeff. Rumble. No matter how many times I've seen it, it's still so scary. Golden Lion, who had just flown to the snowy mountain and was about to separate the base from the mountain, couldn't help but feel a little frightened when he saw this amazing scene. The terrifying aura full of oppression on Ryoma's body was simply frightening. Rumble. The entire mountain shook violently, rising from the ground. The huge experimental base was ripped away from the island. The scientists and agents inside were all staggered due to the strong shaking, and their expressions changed drastically. Rumble. The entire island seemed to have lost its support in an instant, shook violently, and fell straight down. There is only a huge mountain and the surrounding seawater that has been peeled off from the sea, carrying the large marine warships one after another, still floating in the sky, and constantly flying towards the distance. These large battleships are the top battleships in marine and are built using the latest technology. Naturally, they all fell in love with Ryoma. Most of the Marines guarding above had been stunned by Ryoma's terrifying conqueror's haki and lost consciousness. The remaining survivors were handed over to Steel Claw, Alan, an ability user in the form of the ancient bird fruit cooing. If you want to challenge the world government and the 4 emperors of the New World, how can you do it without warships? It's impossible to rely on him, the boss, to do everything himself. Boom, crash. The loud noise shook the sky, and the sea roared and boiled. The huge island crashed into the sea, and huge waves thousands of meters high couldn't help but surge up and roll wildly in all directions, which was a bit scary. Gia ha ha ha, it's really spectacular. Looking at the shocking scene below, Steel Claw, Alan, who had just rushed out from one of the warships with the smell of blood and turned into a black giant eagle, hovering in the sky, laughed out loud. Brush. Long Ma's whole body swept towards the snow mountain in an instant. Located in the experimental base in the middle of the mountain. How so? Master Jeff. That guy Rex Jeff. He was a famous monster in the CPU, and he was killed like this. The scientists, staff, and world government agents all couldn't help but be stunned. They couldn't believe it and took a breath of air as they looked at the screen projected by the phone bug. Dragon-slaying samurai. Shimotsuki Ryoma is worthy of being the legendary world's greatest swordsman. Dr. Vegapunk's eyes flickered slightly, looking thoughtfully at the surveillance screens that were mostly darkened. He certainly knows how strong that rebellious guy Rex Jeff is. Although it is not demon fruit power, the physical skills are terrifyingly strong. Under normal circumstances, even if it is the Admiral of Naval Headquarters, but according to Vegapunk's speculation, if you want to kill the opponent, even if you rely on the advantage of ability, don't even think about it easily if you don't have 10 days and midnight. But how long did it take for Ryoma to kill Rex Jeff just now? No wonder someone dared to directly attack the Marine Science Unit near the Red Line. However, I can't help but feel relieved when I think of Admiral Kizaru, Marine Marshal Sengoku and others who died under Shimotsuki Ryuma's sword. The old god, Dr. Vegapunk, who was sitting on the big chair next to him, suddenly inserted his right hand quietly into his white coat and pressed the button on a phone bug in his pocket. Beep beep beep. At this time, all external communications within the experimental base were inexplicably interrupted. The phone kept making strange noises. What happened? All telephone bug signals have been blocked. The faces of these world government agents all changed greatly. Someone took out other phone bugs and found that they were also unable to make contact. Obviously, the phone bug just wasn't broken. How is this going? The leader of a CP agent walked in. He directly grabbed a scientific researcher next to him and asked loudly. It is estimated that the radio waves have been disrupted, and the other party may have used some means to block the communication. The old scientist was frightened by the other party's fierce momentum, his face turned pale, and he said tremblingly. There were also a few scientists who remained calm but glanced at Dr. Vegapunk, who looked very calm as usual. Only the chief scientist of the world government can fully control this laboratory and even install some unknown equipment privately. The CP agent leader became rich in cold sweat. Looking at the scientists in the monitoring room, their eyes had a terrifying coldness, as if they were making some kind of difficult decision. After a moment, he gritted his teeth and ordered, "Get ready immediately. When Shimotsuki Ryoma and the others break into this place, they will blow up the laboratory." When the laboratory was built, a large amount of high explosives had been buried in order to prevent accidents in the future, or when planning to abandon the base, the traces here should be completely erased to avoid certain inability of the scientific troops. Open secrets revealed. No matter what, the Marine Science Force cannot fall into the hands of Shimotsuki Ryoma. Otherwise, he couldn't imagine what terrible consequences there would be. Having been responsible for monitoring this place for so long, he deeply knows the value of the research and scientists here. If Shimotsuki Ryoma gets it, it will be a huge disaster. If the laboratory is detonated, Shimotsuki Ryoma and Golden Lion Shiki might even be able to be killed directly, eliminating a potentially huge threat to the world government. Not to mention, this is the last order issued by the Five Elders. What, Lord Eric? Absolutely not. Do you want to kill us? In the monitoring room, everyone present could not help but look moldy. Except for those agents and a few staff who had been brainwashed by the world government and were carefully selected to monitor and protect this place, the scientists and a considerable number of staff all began to strongly oppose it. Most of them were forced to work for the world government under strong pressure, but they never thought about dedicating their lives to this world government, which was full of darkness and blood. Puff. Ah. A staff member who tried to object was directly pierced through the heart by a dark finger. Eric pulled out his bleeding fingers and said coldly to the agents, "Immediately execute the order, and anyone who disobeys will be killed." He glanced vaguely at Dr. Vegapunk, who was sitting there calmly, with a bit of fear. He didn't mind killing these scientists in advance as a precaution, but Dr. Vegapunk was too mysterious and always gave him an extremely dangerous feeling. However, just when he hesitated, boom! At this time, the base shook violently, and the scientists and staff, who had little strength, almost fell to the ground. At the exit of the base, the door was tightly closed, even mixed with sea stone, and was more than several meters thick. The alloy door was directly split open like tofu by Ryoma's blade carrying high-level hockey. Moreover, the location of these scientists was instantly locked. Through several thick alloy doors, he walked straight towards CPO Senior Agent Eric, whose expression changed drastically. Without hesitation, he immediately attacked Dr. Vegapunk and struck through the air. The top of the red line. Holy place above Mariajoy. The Five Elders' faces were ashen as water, and they were a little angry. Dr. Vegapunk is not only the vital chief scientist of the world government, but also the executor of the Immortality Project, plan that the world's nobles value most. Those great men enjoy supreme power, and their desire for immortality is naturally even stronger. Now we're in big trouble, the Five Elders of Whitebeard said in distress. According to the news that just came from CP, not only the life cards of Rex Jeff have been burned out, but also the life cards of Eric and others who are responsible for monitoring the scientific force have all been burned out one after another. The old man wearing a flat hat, leaning on a cane, said solemnly, Dr. Vegapunk and quite a few scientists were detained by the world government in disguise to work in the scientific force. I guess these guys have no loyalty at all. They can't do anything. Well, he would really betray you directly. It's so careless. I didn't expect that guy Shimotsuki Ryoma to have been targeting the Marine Science Force for a long time. He has been planning for a long time. Holding the bald five elders of first-generation Kitetsu, the gloomy eyes were a bit cold. When the base of the Marine Science Force was being built, who would have thought that the entire base would be taken away even though it was usually guarded by the highest combat power of the naval headquarters and a large number of troops? Let dragon-slaying samurai Shimotsuki Ryoma take away scientists like Dr. Vegapunk. It must be a great threat. Tens of thousands of meters in the air. More than 20 large warships flew across the sky. All the staff at the experimental base were cleared away by Longma. There are also several scientists who are loyal to the world government and try to detonate the laboratory, and they are also merciless. But he was not sure whether there was a life card hidden somewhere in this experimental base. Therefore, even if they were unwilling to give up easily, this base, which the world government had invested heavily in building, and even contained quite a few important scientific research results and research materials, was still not picked up and taken away for the sake of safety. Only those scientists and some of the more important materials, items, and indispensable scientific research equipment were taken away. With the capabilities of Golden Lion, it will not be too difficult to transfer these sophisticated equipment that are bulky and expensive. Even if you have money, you may not be able to buy them from the market. If the enemy catches up and enters the experimental base, the sensor mechanism designed by Dr. Vegapunk of 733 will be triggered, and it will be instantly blown into ashes by the high explosives that are said to be quite amazing. I'm sorry, everyone, I just offended you so much. In the leading warship, Ryoma smiled and apologized to the scientists who were a little cold-faced and glared at him. He didn't do anything just now. He just asked these scholars to put on clothes that he had personally inspected to prevent phone bugs or life cards from revealing their whereabouts. You are really cautious. Unlike other scientists, Dr. Vegapunk, who looks very tall and thin and wears a suit, sits there calmly. No wonder he dares to challenge the world government and threatens to ascend to the throne of the void. The only disharmonious thing is that his hair is messy. He has the same common problem as most scientists. He doesn't like to trim his appearance or tidy up his appearance. I didn't expect that a big man who was thought to have been dead for hundreds of years is still alive. An old scientist looked at Shimotsuki Ryoma and said in disbelief. Not only him, but also several scientists looked at Ryoma with burning eyes. I wish I could directly slice the opponent into pieces and study them, and find out the secret of the opponent's immortality for hundreds of years. Several of them belonged to once illegal overseas research teams, but were later bought by the world government and had to work for them. Of course he was a little dissatisfied with being forcibly taken away by Shimotsuki Ryoma. But he doesn't want to commit suicide directly. Judging from your previous behavior, Dr. Vegapunk, you don't seem to object to me taking you away by force, but are very cooperative. Ryoma looked at Vegapunk with a smile. He could feel that the other party seemed very calm, without any panic. There is even a hint of freedom from the control of the world government. From the fact that he just took the initiative to set up a detonation device in that experimental base, it can be seen that this guy has long been unhappy with the world government that controls his personal freedom and squeezes him desperately. World government is rotten to the core and will end sooner or later, but I still can't see clearly the future direction of the world. Dr. Vegapunk sat on the armchair. He crossed his legs and said nonchalantly, to be honest, compared to you, I would probably be happier if someone from the Revolutionary Army came to pick me up. Revolutionary Dragon. Ryoma smiled faintly. Perhaps the ideas he promotes are indeed more popular than mine, but he doesn't have the courage and ability. Through the memory of that guy Porosalino, he already knew that when the Revolutionary Long was still in Marine, he used to be Vegapunk's bodyguard. Gia haha. Speaking of it, the harvest this time is really quite big. Pointing to the black suitcase on the desk, Golden Lion Shiki laughed a little bit strangely. I didn't expect that your marine science team would be so extravagant and use such precious devil fruit for research. Under Vegapunk's reminder, when they evacuated the base just now, they got the devil fruit used by the scientific team for research. You are wrong, it should be said that world government is as luxurious as this. Ryoma chuckled as he sat opposite Vegapunk, playing with a large golden pen with exquisite patterns. The 3 devil fruits in this suitcase are pretty good. In addition, he had a lot of money with Zone, phantom beast species, and the ability to transform into a raccoon form, so this time it was indeed a big gain. And the ability of this pen is really exaggerated, to be honest. No matter what you draw on the deformed leaf, it can become a reality. I have to admit that your luck is really good. If it goes on for a while, I might have to use these fruits for experiments. Vegapunk said nonchalantly. Of course, if you come early on, I won't directly use this phantom beast fruit as a test subject. In this world, he is the only one who directly uses the extremely precious devil fruit as experimental materials. It doesn't matter, it's all the same. Ryoma smiled lightly. A green deformed leaf appeared on his hand. Use that big golden pen to write a name on it, Vegapunk. Throw it forward. Bang! A tall and thin figure wearing a white coat appeared in front of everyone. Exactly the same as the Dr. Vegapunk in front of me. Except for Steel Claw Alan and Golden Lion, the scientists present were not surprised. It seems that he has become accustomed to the ability of this big pen. In fact, it doesn't matter what is written or drawn on the deformed leaves. The key is the person or object imagined in the mind. The function of the deformed leaves is to serve as a carrier so that they can be embodied. I tried it, and it has about 20% of my own scientific research power. Dr. Vegapunk curled his lips. He had already done similar tests. 20%. That's enough. Raising his eyebrows, Ryoma nodded. A replica with 20% of Dr. Vegapunk's scientific research capabilities. I believe that I can already directly preside over many scientific research projects. Tisk, tisk, incredible ability. Golden Lion Shiki was amazed. Such an exaggerated ability is undoubtedly useful. I just don't know how much of the original body's strength can be exerted. Bang! A burst of smoke came out, and a cute civet cat appeared. Well, I'm very powerful, right? It patted its chest and smiled at Longma as if taking credit. It's really awesome, little guy. Ryoma patted its little head and said with a chuckle, from today on, you will be called Pato. Pato. The little raccoon cat tilted its head, bit its finger and looked at Vegapunk. Pato, you can follow him from now on, so you don't have to be trapped in the laboratory every day. Dr. Vegapunk nodded directly to him. This little guy is equivalent to the life he created. He originally didn't want it to be brainwashed and used by the world government and become a tool for those guys. Prepare to let him leave the scientific research base privately. That's great. The little raccoon cat jumped up and down happily. Not timid at all, he jumped onto Shimotsuki Ryoma's lap. Then you are my boss. You can call me whatever you like. Located in the first half of New World, in the Bariana Sea. Large-scale soaring currents, serpentine vortices and other bad phenomena occur frequently all year round. Every year, countless ships are destroyed here. Even marine warships do not dare to approach rashly and stay away. One huge floating sky island after another, just floating there. Seeing such a shocking scene, the scientists led by Dr. Vegapunk couldn't help but light up. Flying warship, it's true, Mr. Ingong wrote that Golden Lion and the others are back. Gulu, it's so awesome, we brought back 20 more warships. Gia hee 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 hee, those guys from the world government are probably going to be furious. Speaking of which, whenever I heard Marine's Buster call before, I might be scared to the point of weakness. Looking at the 20-odd large warships floating in the sky, as well as Shimotsuki Ryoma and Golden Lion on the leading warship. A prisoner whose name had been changed and dressed in various colors shouted. They were cheering, waving their hands, looking wildly, full of awe, and indescribable excitement. The huge floating Sky Island group, under the control of Golden Lion, merged with the 20 flying warships. CP9 headed by Rob Lucci, the King Kong giant ape, and the supernovas who gradually began to integrate in, continued their practice and did not come over. In the new world, if they cannot seize the time to improve their strength, they will only be ruthlessly eliminated or become dispensable vassals. After all, among the impelled down prisoners, especially the guys in the 5th level freezing hell and the 6th level eternal hell, there are a lot of them who can easily defeat them. Husband, Ryuma Rugo-sama. These guys are all scientists from the Marine Science Corps, right? Is he the Dr. Vegapunk who surpasses the current human wisdom for 500 years? Medusa, who was looking forward to it, led Red Earl Rider, Bullet and others to greet them one after another. He looked at Vegapunk and other scientists who were following Ryoma and others with surprise and curiosity. Clean up the central area of the Beast Island and use it as a new base for the scientific troops. Pointing at Ruskana, Shimotsuki Ryoma said directly to Golden Lion and Bullet, Shiki, Bullet, you go help them complete the construction of the new experimental base, and use your ability, Bullet, to help them build the experimental equipment and metal they need. Equipment. He had thought about it early. We are going to use that Beast Island to house these scientists. If the abilities of Golden Lion and Bullet are combined, they can create the experimental base Dr. Vegapunk and the others need in the shortest possible time. Gia ha ha ha, no problem. Golden Lion Shiki agreed. Bullet didn't say anything, but nodded along. Not long. Golden Lion Shiki and Bullet. He took the warships and the scientists directly to the Ruskai Beast Island. Husband, this little guy on your shoulder. Medusa blinked her beautiful eyes and looked at the cute raccoon cat on Ryoma's shoulder in surprise. Hello, eldest sister, I am Pato. I am a pen that has taken Zone's ability to transform into a raccoon form. Without the need for Ryoma to introduce himself, Pato had already jumped to the ground and greeted the beauty politely. Dusha bowed and introduced herself. A pen that ate devil fruit's power. Tisk, tisk, phantom beast type, raccoon form. This incredible guy is not much different from a truly intelligent creature. Medusa, Red Earl Rider, Burndy World and others were all astonished. I couldn't help but look at this strange little raccoon cat. After a short exchange, it was discovered that although the other party was born only a short time ago, his intelligence was no less than that of an ordinary human child. I can only sigh at the miraculous ability of the phantom beast species. He, I'm super powerful. Pato patted his chest proudly. I will definitely become the boss's right-hand man. Pato's ability is very special. It can materialize the targets imagined in people's brains, whether they are organic or inorganic objects, dead objects or living things, or even people with abilities. Lifting Pato onto his shoulders, Ryoma introduced with a faint smile. Let Medusa, Red Earl Rider, and World be stunned. Where's Hancock? Ryoma asked casually after scanning the surroundings and finding that Boa Hancock was not there. That girl is very motivated. After asking for a life card that can guide the direction, she set off directly to the moon. She said she wanted to find the Logia Thunder Fruit user for you. Pointing to the unclear, white disk in the sky, Medusa smiled and said, in addition, the sea hero Jinbei in 7 Warlords of the Sea, I also allow him to leave temporarily and return to the bottom of the sea. The Fishmen Island. This morning, Hexia Jinbei came to ask her to go back to the Fishmen Island. He also claimed that he would not run away, but would go back to explain some things. Because many years ago, she had an old relationship with a certain mermaid princess from the Dragon Palace Kingdom on the Fishmen Island. Medusa did not have any disgust or rejection towards the Fishmen. She did not embarrass the other party and agreed generously. Well, that's not bad. I hope she can gain something soon. Ryoma smiled. As for the Fishman Jinbei, he didn't care. If that guy is willing to surrender sincerely, he will indeed have pretty good combat power. If he doesn't want to, there will be no substitutes under his command. Medusa, bring out the demon fruit power from those disobedient guys. There is an experiment I want to verify. He walked towards the palace on the island, remembered something, and walked towards Medusa said. There are so many prisoners, all of them are extremely vicious and lawless guys. Of course some people don't follow the rules. Within a few days, their true colors appeared one after another, and they were full of ugliness. Among them, there are many pretentious guys who think they will not be punished for making small mistakes. The women who were trying to trick anyone into getting their hands on those Amazon lily were beaten half to death by Medusa and locked up directly, waiting to be punished. He held a deformed leaf in his hand. He grabbed Pato's golden tail like the tip of a pen and wrote a name on it, Marshall D. Teach. If Pato's ability is really what he guessed, then there is no need for that guy to exist. Of course, the ability to plunder other people's devil fruit is too exaggerated. It is expected that the ability to transform into a raccoon form has not reached that amazing level, so Ryoma does not have high hopes. Just wanted to try it out. Crash. The vast blue sea has undulating waves. Thousands of meters high in the sky, dozens of large warships guard the huge floating sky islands. From an altitude of several thousand meters, it flew towards the front, which was extremely spectacular. The first one is on the floating Sky Island, in a gorgeous palace. Lord Ryoma, a prisoner who was rescued from the freezing hell on the 5th floor but was imprisoned by Medusa again for not obeying the rules, was kneeling there anxiously, his face turned pale and he was sweating profusely. Zone Inu dog fruit pug form. Ryoma, who was sitting on the main seat, stared at him. The transformed leaf flew out with his name already written on his hand. Bang! Smoke filled the air. Ha ha ha! Blackbeard's bloated body appeared strangely. He bowed to the dragon and horse above him and stood there silently. In fact, I am on another island at this moment. In order to show his loyalty to Ryoma, Marshal D. Teach is working with the criminals on the 6th floor of Impel Down, and is working hard to teach Rat, Buggies, Hawkins, Rob Lucci and other areas to practice hockey. Husband, what do you want? Medusa was astonished. She finally understood why Ryoma didn't let Blackbeard come over. Lixishishi, boss, what do you want to do? Pato was jumping up and down there. He looked around and blinked his big eyes, full of curiosity. Raging darkness. It poured out uncontrollably, drowning the trembling criminal. No, accompanied by screams. A body fell. The huge figure of Blackbeard also turned into smoke. Did you fail? Ryoma looked at the disappearing darkness ahead, as well as the bulging eyes, frightened expression, and lifeless corpse, and shrugged indifferently. Not surprised. After all, the current performance of the ability to transform into a raccoon form is already too exaggerated. According to Ryoma's speculation, if it's Blackbeard's ability, it's really replaceable. There is only one fruit, Paramecia copy fruit. Pato, come out, I need to verify your ability. Ryoma was not disappointed and walked outside. Yes, that's right, clean up this place. Medusa gave instructions to the maid and followed Ryoma outside. I saw a green deformed leaf appear again on Ryoma's hand. He grabbed Pato's tail and wrote the word, flying saucer, inside. The leaves flew out, in Medusa's surprised gaze. A flying saucer-shaped spaceship that was several meters high, completely black, shining with metallic luster, appeared and was suspended there. There were waves of hurricanes, which made it difficult to open one's eyes. Husband, what is this? With her aqua blue hair flying and her cheongsam hunting, Medusa was full of curiosity. He stared at the metal bump he had never seen before, a bit like a huge saucer. The spaceship does seem to have considerable flying capabilities, Ryoma said with a chuckle. This spaceship was completely modeled after an anime he had seen in his previous life, and he knew exactly how to operate it. Go up and try. The hatch opens automatically. The elevator drops from the bottom of the flying saucer. Two figures walked in one after another. Lee hee hee, boss, what is this? Bouncing followed and jumped on Ryoma's shoulders. Pato asked curiously. It is just the carrier of the activation ability. The deformation leaf presents the things in Shimotsuki Ryoma's mind, but he also doesn't know what it is. The internal space suddenly opens up. Precision instruments are present there. Switch buttons, joysticks, etc. look simple and clear. And the high-definition electronic screen can clearly see the scene outside. Start up. Ryoma pressed the start button. The elevator retracts and the hatch closes. It has started, the spacecraft is about to start. A metallic trill echoed, prompting there. That is. It's flying, in the disbelieving eyes of those 9 snake female warriors. The huge flying saucer, under Shimotsuki Ryoma's inexperienced operation, took off. He tilted and flew toward Ruskena below. Soon, the flying saucer passed directly through the heavy clouds and landed in Ruskena. This surprised Dr. Vegapunk and others who were commanding Golden Lion Shiki and Bullet to build a new experimental base. Tisk, tisk, you have a rich imagination, and you even made this thing. Dr. Lake, with a gray beard, looked at Shimotsuki Ryoma and Medusa who got off the flying saucer, and pat the little tanuki. Said with a chuckle. For these scientists, flying saucers are no stranger. After all, those Enlightenment science fiction magazines circulating in the sea have had it. Moreover, they understand many things that ordinary people don't know, and aliens do indeed exist. According to legend, the residents of Sky Island are aliens who came from the moon. Gia ha ha ha, incredible ability, very interesting. Golden Lion Shiki looked at the flying saucer, couldn't help but laugh, and said, I can visualize all the items in my mind, even people or things that don't exist in this sea, but I don't know where the limit is. I don't know if it can be disassembled. If it is possible, I would like to understand its structure. Bullet's eyes were intense as he stared at this flying saucer that shone with metallic luster and was full of science fiction. As long as he understands the structure of this flying saucer, and with the ability of his fusion fruit, he should be able to copy it perfectly. This thing is undoubtedly very convenient. I hope you can do it. Dr. Vegapunk poured cold water on him rudely, but that's impossible. Good. It's just a result of Pato's ability. It's an integrated structure. If it's damaged by more than 20%, it will disappear directly. Disassembly should also be included. He had already tried it. Ryoma asked Pato for some transformation leaves. A mythical creature, Keelin, was written directly on it. Bang! A majestic beast appeared with its feet set on flames and its body covered in scales. Lion head, antlers, tiger eyes, dust body, dragon scales, ox tail. Roar! Just appeared. There it was, raising its head and roaring. The roar was deafening, making many beasts panic. This is a mythical creature similar to a dragon, a unicorn. Everyone's eyes, including those scientists, Medusa, Golden Lion Shiki and others, could not help but shrink. Looking at Dr. Vegapunk, Ryoma asked directly, can he eat devil fruit? I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.